Welcome to the Fight or Die podcast. This is your host, Adam Howarth. Today, I am joined by co-host Brandon Simmons, and our guest for this episode is John Matter, a very cool guy up here in Wisconsin that did 16 years in the Marine Corps, has been shot probably as much as 50 cent, has a bunch of professional MMA fights under his belt, big into that sport. I think at least 40. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of that, and then runs a very successful training company these days, doing tactical training and helping keep the folks who are still in the fight. So welcome, John.
Thanks for having me, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, man. So I said in our intro here, shot more than 50 cent, but how many times have you been shot again?
I've been shot 9 times, and actually I know. My brother was talking about that one time, and a kid at a bar said, "Oh, that ain't shit. 50 Cent's been shot more than that." So that's not the first time I've heard the 50 Cent reference. So yeah, so 9 times over over about 10 years of back and forth between Iraq and Afghanistan, and 3 Purple Hearts.
I'm not mistaken. 50 Cent's actually been shot 9 times. That was his thing. So
or even
you're tied, and I don't think that's a record you should try and beat. I think 9.
I'm not bragging about that.
What guy at a bar is standing across from an MMA dude, former Marine sniper who's beaten some ass and wants to go 50 cents better? Like, that's not going to start a fight.
No, I was
clearly
cool.
didn't.
I said, "Yes, sir. You were correct." And I just walked away. I don't want no part of that kid.
See, that's how you know that you really don't want to fuck with that guy. When they don't talk shit back immediately, you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to take this as a win. I'm going to walk away now.
Right, now it's out.
I think it's like the librarian thing when you're dating. It's almost like the nicest dude in the room is probably the most dangerous guy in the room.
Well, and honestly, that's usually the right thing. The guy's out there running his mouth and telling people how tough he is doing it for a reason, and it's usually because he's not very tough. So
Yep.
No, it's easier to go the opposite way and kind of be quiet and humble, and try not to get your teeth knocked out of your face.
So with your guys as a trading company, do you deal with guys who, like, you almost have to remind that they have to learn how to keep their mouth shut?
Yeah. We do a lot of we work with a lot of police, we work with a lot of foreign military. We help develop counterterrorism SOP, SWAT SOP, and then we do civilian shooting courses. And 99% of these civilians are awesome people. A lot of them are prior military, and a lot of them are just they spend money on a gun. So they said, "Hey, let's figure out how to." It's worth for me to spend a few bucks on learning how to use it properly. And I talk a lot about the mindset you have to be in order to defend yourself properly, defend your home properly. And but every once in a while you get a goofball that you got to say, "Hey, what are you here for?" Like I've had people ask me, "Well, how do you skip bullets underneath a car?" And I said, "Well, what do you need this information for?" First of all, I have no idea how to do that. If someone has that knowledge, he's a better operator than I was. But it's few and far between. For the most part, these guys, they want to spend a few $1,000 on a weapon system and some body armor or a security camera for their home, and they want to be able to use that to their best ability. So the vast majority of people are good people, but every once in a while you get a goofball that he wants to say that he's a gunfighter.
How has the training changed, like post 9/11? Like I can only imagine, like, the military is churning out a lot of warfighters these days, and some dudes like yourself, 16 years, you've put yourself through the motions. What's your feeling on over the past couple of decades? How has that changed, tactical training?
Well, the biggest thing these wars have done is taught our military instructors how to be better instructors, and our civilian instructors and our military instructors how to be real world instructors. Even when I came in, and probably when you came in, there wasn't many combat hardened instructors saying this is what I did in during this specific event. And even when I went through sniper school, I was young, and most of the instructors didn't have any sniper experience. At the end of my career, after I got injured, I became a sniper instructor. I was actually a chief instructor at sniper school. And, I got to sit these kids down and say, this was my mental preparation. This is how I physically went about doing these very specific tasks. This is what I thought. This is what I felt. This is the emotions you'll go through. This is the preparation you have to do in order to get A, B, and C done. And it made me a much better instructor. And then going into, the police training stuff, very few police officers, thankfully, have been in firefights. So when I instruct them, I'm going to say, hey, this is what your emotional state's going to be during a firefight. So if you train at a certain level, I promise you'll operate at a lesser level. And I say, not because a book told me, not because Lieutenant Colonel Grossman wrote in a book, because dumbass John Matter says this is what I experienced over and over and over again in high stress situations. And then I can add in the science of the physiology of high stress situations. You're going to lose dexterity. You're going to lose your eyesight's going to get lessened. Your hearing's going to be intense. You're not going to be able to see color as well. So science says that, but I can say, and in my experience, this is what happened, so it makes you a more believable, but just an all around better instructor. Say, hey, this is what happens in real life, and I imagine that's for anything, any kind of instructor, any kind of football, wrestling coach. There's probably great football coaches that never played football, but the best coach can say, this is how I did it. This is how we do it now. This is how I understand, these are the capabilities or limitations of human beings that I understand. That I'm gonna make you, try to reach your capabilities, but this is what happens in real life, And I'm kind of running with your question, but the answer your question is if anything, this war has made much better gunfighters, civilian gunfighters, police gunfighters, and trained younger Marine military guys now that learn from our experiences.
I do actually want to build on that, because I just recently saw a proposal coming out of Racine, Wisconsin, where they're looking to try and make sure sounds like the wrong verbiage, but they're looking to not hire military veterans for the police force due to the militarization of police. But also, like you just said, this training that they've received seems extremely beneficial for police departments, especially today. We're not talking about the laws, and we're not talking about who agrees with what.
Right.
The politics are the politics. I'm talking strictly doing your job when you have to. It seems like a very stupid move that's going on over there, that they're trying to move on. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, here's my thoughts. I've seen 19-year-old kids in Afghanistan and Iraq have to make real world decisions on entering a house with children, with women, with a group at an open air market, that they're being shot at, and these 19-year-old kids are making decisions on how and when to engage and make the least amount of do the least amount of damage, and those kids getting out of the military, being put in a police department, working for Racine, and if they're going to, the police department's going to say, hey, 25-year-old man, I'm going to expect you to make a real world decision. And this 25-year-old can say, unlike most kids coming out of college, I've made these decisions before, and I understand the value of human life. I'm not just a mindless killer, and and I understand how to emotionally and then physically navigate through shooting bad guys and not shooting good guys. In the military, I understand is a little heavy-handed, and if you watch TV, you get that drill instructor mentality that civilians probably don't want to endure. I don't want that as a civilian now. I don't want a police officer say, hey, dipshit, get out of your car and kind of knife handing me, But I also want, if a bad guy's in my house, I want a well-trained gunfighter coming to save me. Right. And those well-trained gunfighters are trained in the military, and they come in and they'll be a multiplier to a police department and not a detriment, So, and that's not a generic over, all-encompassing statement. There's some dipshits that get out of the military that shouldn't be police officers that become police officers. But there's also dipshits that get out of college that shouldn't be police officers that become police officers. So I think when used properly, the military matures people at a pretty rapid rate. And if you have the ability to say, okay, this is my military mindset, this is how I had to operate in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm no longer in Afghanistan. I'm in Racine. So I can't, I don't need to yell and scream at people. But when shit hits the fan, I have the ability to react properly. That's the best of both worlds, So, I read that same article, and it was just sad. And all that is some, in my opinion, some politician that's never met an actual, war hardened military person that wants to get some headlines. And it's sad that that's even a thing nowadays.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, it's dealing with stereotypes and sound bites, right? Even that guy's got a sound bite now, and people are going to draw conclusions from it where, when I saw it, I was like, I laughed because I was like, well, all right, that's discriminatory. That's not going to fly.
Right.
But at the same time, it was just like, well, then what, right? Like, who are you going to hire for some of these jobs? Like John had mentioned with the 19-year-old dude who has to stay disciplined with his rules of engagement. Like, you just have to have, maybe more clearly defined, or I don't know, John, you're going to be a solution for a lot of this problem is how do we train this? How do we train good restraint, right? How do we know when to hold back? It's
Absolutely.
I can't remember what movie I was watching the other day. Oh, I was watching this, and I'm not promoting a stupid movie, but I watched the Mel Gibson movie Fat Man, which actually has a little bit of gunfighting in it, which is kind of fun. But the dude who, like, not to give it away, but the villain type in the movie was just wasting magazines. And I'm screaming from my couch at 11 o'clock at night. And my wife can't figure out why I'm so excited or so pissed off. I'm like, conserve ammo, dude. What are you doing? Seriously. I was getting anxiety over the thought the guy just kept dumping mags. And I was, the same rules apply. Like, you just can't go out there, doing whatever you want to do.
But at least he was reloading, right?
All of his technical skills were great. All right.
All right.
The way he was dumping mags and reload, and technically and tactically proficient, but he was not conserving his ammo.
Some ammo dump as long as they actually are reloading compared to just the it's got an infinity magazine here.
I will admit that the military has ruined my ability to enjoy the normal ass movie, because I'm like,
every grenade.
That's not how it goes. Yeah. And people that, like, my girlfriend's like, dude, just shut up and enjoy this fucking movie. I don't, I understand that a grenade won't blow that up. And I'm like, well, it wouldn't, and I throw all my video trying to show her real life stuff. So yeah.
Like, that wouldn't even destroy the room that he threw it in, let alone the whole building.
Right.
I can't watch this anymore. I can't.
But in real life, if you're watching a movie and they throw a grenade at this kind of one poof, you think, oh, that's a shitty ass movie. So,
right. Like, they had no budget, man. Their production value was crap.
And I remember the first time I threw a grenade in real life, and I was like, man, that wasn't impressive at all. That kind of bummed me out,
You were so excited too.
Right.
Oh. Yeah, Hollywood, man. You could sit there and watch all those movies and see how they're how good they're. You almost want to yell and be like, who's the consultant on this film? Hey, John, have you ever been approached for work like that?
Yeah, a few times. And I don't like Hollywood to the point where it wouldn't be fun for me. And I know, like John Wick, for example, the SEAL that he worked with got him operating like a no shit gunfighter, and he did outstanding. And I enjoyed watching that movie, and I've been more with the MMA stuff, and than the actual gunfighting stuff. But I have been approached a few times to consult with people on just moving through houses and then fighting kind of stuff. But fortunately for me, I'm doing okay with my current job, so I don't have to do stuff I don't want to do, and that's really something I wouldn't want to do. But if COVID goes up a week or two, man, I might be down in Hollywood knocking on doors. Who knows? Yeah.
I feel like that's how you end up in an act of valor moment. I was so excited to watch that film, and they promoted it so hardcore. Like, Navy SEALs, no, there was a whole team. They all watched. They all were all producing. They were all there. They did everything. And I'm like, they have red lasers walking through a town looking through night vision. It's an IR. You can't see it. But you didn't explain it. You just let them use red lasers, which wouldn't. All right, I'm done. I can't do that. I'm not even a Navy SEAL, and this is pissing me off.
Right.
At that point, your check already cashed. You're like, all right, whatever.
Right. Just the amount of promotion, they just really just shoved it down your throat that Navy SEALs were involved. I'm like, that makes these guys look a little bit worse in the eyes of most people that know that none of this is what they would actually be doing.
But in their defense, my team had a book written about us. We actually had a guy follow us around. It's called Ronin, and that was our call sign. And we had a very successful set of missions And the way the book was written, it just wasn't, there was a lot of poetry added, and if you think about it, I mean,
liberties taken.
Our job was pretty boring. We would sit around for a few weeks or sit around for a few days, and and if our job was right, we sit around, get our shot off, and then kind of fade away. And it didn't translate well for the book. So he had to be a little poetic with his things, and he did it right in front of our faces, and we seen it happening. And at first we'd be like, well, no, that's not really our mindset. I wasn't thinking that, and he's like, well, and then so I get it, and I get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I get that. I'm sure one of the SEALs said, hey, bro, that red laser's fucking ridiculous. And he said, well, it looks good on TV. Okay. Right. So
that's the only reason I got so upset was because they just talked about it like, no, this isn't going to be like every other Hollywood film where we say that it's going to be so accurate. Like, this one's made by them. And I'm like, hell yeah, this is going to be it. How are they going to figure out how to make those things that seem mundane or that wouldn't be exciting in a movie be exciting in a movie? Like, that's what I was excited about. And I was like, you took every fucking trope and you threw it in this movie. Like, you just shit on months of marketing and advertising this to make one of the most cliche fucking movies I've ever seen. I'm like, this is like watching an 80s action movie. It's just absurd. It's ridiculous. It's still entertaining, and I love the story, everything like that. The movie's still great. It was just that it was a huge letdown in that one aspect.
Oh,
but it is a movie. You got to make it visually pleasing. That's
right. I hear it.
Half the battle. But I can only imagine being the guy who has to work that movie. Yeah, we would never actually do red lasers. Yeah, but look how cool that shit looks on camera.
Right.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, run with it. We're going to spray some fog in here too. Dude, it's 98 degrees and it's midnight. There's no fog. Yeah, but look how them fucking lasers look in that fog.
Yeah. We're in the desert. Okay. Dry. Right. Hey man, cash your check and hope no one watches the movie. That's
yeah. Yeah, I think at that point you just got to smile from like your new deck with a spa on it or something, and just like, cheers, boys.
It's like, this cold beer in this hot tub's real nice right now, though.
Right. Badass fur jacket or something.
That's got to be interesting to have to fend off some of that stuff, though, because I'm sure at times it could be a little tempting, but like, what's that going to do? What's that going to, where's your integrity at that point? Everything you've worked your whole life for, then you just sell it off to Hollywood.
Well, in Marines, I will brag on us a little bit. We've done a good job. Staying away from that kind of sellout. Like I said, we've had a book written about our team. So and I took some flack for that. And I've talked about. We don't talk about our unit specifically, but I've talked about some of the things I've done, and I'm very proud of some of the things I've done. And
you should be.
But it's not my job to represent that unit by any means, so I tend to say, hey, this is my experience, this is John Mayer's experience as a United States Marine, and then I feel comfortable talking about, experiences, through that filter. But there's some SEAL guys that say, hey man, I can, you start dangling some money in front of them, and not in a significant amount of money, and it makes your thought process different, I'd imagine, so.
I think for altruistic reasons, there's got to be a lot of guys who go in there with the mindset that they're going to do it the right way. I'm going to make sure that they tell the story right, but then it goes through its process, and as part of the process, some stuff just gets distorted.
Oh, I'm sure they come over and they're just like, look, we brought you in as a courtesy. We just needed a name to say that somebody was here. You just go stand over there, and if we need you, we'll let you know.
Yeah, in life in general is basically boring. If your life was exciting as a movie, like you'd be kind of exhausted, so
all the time.
And if you're 6 months, or your Army guys, if you're 18 months over and 12 months over in Iraq was as exciting as a movie, like you'd put a bullet in your head, so it's so I understand, as a someone that likes movies, you got to make it sexy, you got to make it appealing, but don't like you said, don't say, hey, Navy SEALs, they directed this movie, and then do the red, white bullshit and then embarrass the military, so.
Yeah, I remember I had a story. Somebody walked up to me with that Keanu video where he was doing 3-gun, and they were like, hey man, is this guy, like good? Like you must be good because you've deployed. And I'm like, dude, he would wax my ass in a gunfight. Like I could not hang with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, no, I could not either. John probably could. I can't.
His gunfighting, his jujitsu, dude's legit. Like his, like I don't know if they took 100,000 takes on each one, but the ones they took, it made him look like he knew what he was doing. Like the way he was transitioning, the way he's going around walls. It's someone took time and taught him how to be a gunfighter. And being a gunfighter is like being an athlete. Some people just get it. Like you see those movies or a football or baseball movie, you're like, oh, that dude's never fucking touched a football in his life, and then you get the baseball movies, the guy looks like he's swinging right and throwing the ball right. Like, all right, that's believable, So yeah, he's definitely believable.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I think I want to jump back in time, man. Where are you even from? Like, how the hell did you figure out you were in a mid-late 90s, I suppose? Like what was life going on when you decided you were going to be a Marine? Is that something you'd always been wanting to do, or?
No interest at all. I played sports my whole life. I grew up in West Dallas, Wisconsin, and I went to college, played football, and I was in college and didn't really like it. I didn't like the atmosphere. I didn't like, the white hat and polo shirt and khaki pant crowd, and I just didn't like school. I wasn't a big fan of, I was young and I wasn't thirsty for knowledge. So it's I was going to school to play sports, and I enjoyed it, but nowhere near. I wasn't happy, And I remember honestly, I was reading a book called "The Things They Carry." I was reading it for English class, and so it got me thinking about the military. And I don't come from a military family. My grandpa was a Marine in Korean War, but I don't think he didn't do much. He was drafted and went over, and he worked for the Air Wing, and so we don't have a big military background. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I said, I am going to join the Marine Corps tomorrow. And I went back to sleep. Next morning, I no shit dialed 1-800-Marines, and some dude answered. I'm like, can I be a Marine? He's like, all right, dummy, where are you? I'm like, I told him, I was like, I'm at school, and he kind of like laughed. He's like, yep, I'll come get your dumbass. And I remember he pulled up, and I talked to him, and I got in his car. We drove down to the recruiter station, and then he goes, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know, like I want to be like a pilot. He's like, how about infantry? I was like, okay, I knew
you're gonna fight dragons, kid.
I knew nothing, dude. I just as easily could have been in. I could have went to the Coast Guard. I could have went to the Army, Navy. I had, I knew what the perception of the Marine Corps was. So I said, that's kind of what I want to do, But other than that, I didn't do much research, and and my intent was to go to the military for 4 years, mature, come back and play football again. And I got there, and I remember even in boot camp, I'm like, yep, this is what I want to be doing. This is exactly where I should be right now, and it's, and that's, that, and I tell people, even when I was a staff sergeant or a gunnery sergeant, I was a senior Marine, and I would walk by and see myself in uniform, and it made me happy still. Like, shit, this is what I want to be doing, So, yep. After, I said I was a Marine for a very short amount of time, and I said, yep, this is what I want to do. I was very happy with my decision.
I don't want to go off on a tangent. I'm just curious. So, after boot camp, I was a Pogue, so I went to MCT, not SOI. But when I was in MCT, I got approached, and they were like, hey, would you ever be interested in going to MARSOC? And I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but it sounds cool. And they were like, yeah, I swim about as good as a brick. So needless to say, I didn't even get close to qualifying to be able to move past that. But you said you went in as infantry. Were you approached similar way? Did they just come up and just like, hey, your PT scores are incredible?
Yeah, so I was playing college football. I was in good shape. I was a little bit bigger. I was actually a good swimmer. And you remember when I came in, that was 8-9 years before MARSOC was even a thing, So the reconnaissance community is where is where, when so you go to SOI and, the reconnaissance community came and said, hey, I was a CS or whatever, a WS1 swimmer. And, I said, hey, if you guys are interested and several of us were interested in that's kind of the route. That's how we were approaching the route we took, So, when I wasn't more mature by any means, but I was more sure in what I wanted to do. I seen some guys, I think I even told you the story that when we were chatting, I seen some guys at a cow hall, the way they're presenting themselves and the way they're moving around and the way they, it's the way they looked, I don't know if they were cool,
but they carried themselves.
The way they carried themselves. They carried themselves like professionals. And I said, I don't know who the hell those guys are. They may have been chow hole, guys for all I know. Right. They end up being reconnaissance guys. And so I was impressed by them early and I kind of made it up that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to go into that kind of sniping or reconnaissance community and.
So how's that even happen? I feel like that's one of the better kept secrets is even in my time in, I knew force recon was a thing and I knew it was something different, but there wasn't enough movies about it clearly or enough to inform me. So maybe take us through that process. What was it to to identify? Was there a selection? Army has selection processes for their top tiered stuff. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, they're definitely a selection process, but the Marine Corps is, if you think about it, there's more Rangers than there are Marines, so the Marine Corps is so small and so intimate that, and honestly, so underfunded that, the higher echelon, operations teams, they're not very well known. I mean, they go on up, especially in pre-war, there was a time where reconnaissance units were kind of attached to a infantry battalion, and they were engineers for an infantry battalion, and they kind of went off on their own for a while, and it kind of went back and forth because we didn't have the SOCOM money to begin with, and we didn't have and without that money and without that designator, we didn't get the missions, so we acted internally, I would put a force reconnaissance unit up against any SEAL team, against any Army SF team, as far as tactics and but you can be as tactful, you could be the baddest dude on earth, but if you don't have the equipment, which the Marine Corps simply didn't, and by design, they didn't have that BARSOC, or they didn't have that SOCOM money, so they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the weapon system, they didn't have the delivery vehicles, so so internally we were well respected, but in the soft community, they were, I wouldn't say they were a joke by any means, but they just didn't have the pull that their sister teams in the SEALs or the Army and amphibious teams had.
My first exposure to that was I never met the dude, but we had a shared friend, and I would always, whenever they asked me questions about my deployment and stuff like that, they're always very specific types of questions, like they knew somebody, and they had mentioned this guy, and when he got out, he immediately transitioned to contractor work, and I'm like, that's a pretty big jump for somebody to make after, maybe an initial contract or something like that. So I started poking around, and then he was in a recon unit, and so I was like, man, there must be something happening there, because when I got out of the military, I don't know, I don't think I was ready for that kind of work yet. A regular Army line unit is not really getting the trigger time they need to do that kind of work. And and so I just immediately then I was kind of curious. And so this will be a fun discussion today, I think. Get to know some of that.
Yeah, it's a different block. You got to be a different type of person. You got to be cerebral. You got to be able to, and you got to want to work. Army SF guys. You got to be able to want to work with brown guys. You got to want to go to South America and integrate yourself in their culture. You got to go to Africa, integrate yourself in your culture. You got to want to do that. So if you just want to kick doors and have no interest in working with indigenous, or friendly forces, and teaching them how to fight and fighting alongside of them, that's not your gig. And if you have no interest in, sitting and taking 10,000 pictures and sitting behind a scope for, days at a time, and then, and sending in beach reps and bridge reps and basically boring shit. If you have no interest in that, because that's what your job really is, You know, you're a support unit for the more important infantry, you know, and you can go a little bit deeper, a little bit faster because you're a smaller team. You know, God forbid you get into a firefight because you're going to fucking lose every time.
Yeah.
You know, so you know you can. So if you join those units for the T-shirt, and you think you're going to go, you know, tell some chick at a bar that you're that you're a tier 1 operator and she's going to give a shit, you know, like, you know, that fades away pretty quick. And you know, if you want to say, hey, tell people at a bar I'm a sniper, that's not the right way. That's not the because it simply won't last long enough, because life's going to suck and you're going to say, shit, this isn't for me, you know. But if you truly care about, you know, snooping and pooping and getting out and being the eyes and ears of a much larger unit and saying, hey, you know, I'm by myself. I'm with a very small 3, 4, 5 man team, and I have radio with artillery and air support and infantry, and all my adjacent units have this, and this, and this is how powerful I am, and I care about that, you know, which was I would sit and kind of fantasize, you know, and kind of get like a warm and fuzzy, like kind of, you know, excuse my language, like get like a warboarder thinking like, damn, I might be the most dangerous human being in this AO right now, you know, with my capabilities, you know, with my personal capabilities, but with my unit's capabilities, I might be the most dangerous human being, you know, in this area. And yeah. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed knowing that people are going to be successful or unsuccessful because of my actions and how I go about, you know, being successful with this specific mission, you know, and that's what drove me for all those years, you know. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I liked saying I did what I did. It made me proud and it made me happy. But, you know, that shit fades real quick. If you don't like what you're doing, man, you know, you can say you're the baddest dude on earth, but that shit gets real boring real quick, you know.
Well, you know what they say, it's like the Marines, it's 1% of like all the military branch personnel or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, speaking of this dude talking about being the baddest dude on the AO, I'm sitting on the side of a mountain in Kajaki, and all of a sudden our radio's going off like, we see you, do you see us? No, who the hell is this? Why are you talking to me? You are not the tower up top. Like, who is this? And then there, you know, we've got our list of call signs that we're expected to hear from. We have to call up to tower. They have to call the COC to find out who this, I'm not going to use a call sign, but who this call sign is. Like, oh, that's a recon unit that's out in your area. Awesome. Glad we knew that, because if for whatever reason they messed up and we saw random people, they're not supposed to be down there. So we're sending mortars or the 50 or 24, whatever, wherever they're at. And like, so I'm glad they called in, but no, we never saw them. We knew they were down there. They didn't give us a position, but we were like, hey, if we see somebody, obviously we'll call in to make sure that's not you or that is you. But yeah, these dudes just sneaking around after telling me they're down there.
Well, you know, part of a good fire paragraph order, op order, is your friendly situation, which has your higher adjacent supporting. And part of that is talking to your higher adjacent and 40 and letting them know that you're in the area, you know. So I mean if you're so it's you know, everyone makes, you know, them cocky mistakes. You know, good, well-trained, mature units wouldn't have made that, and you would have known they're out there forever because you're a good guy to have on your side, right? You know, like I want you to know where I am, because I want you to be able to drop, you know, munitions for me immediately, you know, and not, I don't want to have to go through the, hey bro, by the way, I'm here, shouldn't be here. I'm in a jam. Can I get your help real quick? You know, like I would like to say, hey, you know, media suppression, ABC, you know, 123, and then you fucking start dropping rounds and I can get back and drink a beer with you later, you know. So
I think it was just their way of, I think they were just coming into our area and they wanted to just kind of mess with us a little bit, but also be like, hey, we're here now. Cause we did end up sending some support for them in a couple areas, shooting some mortars and whatnot for them. So, but yeah, I guess saw them.
You gotta try to be cool every once in a while, you know?
Right. I don't blame them. If I was them, I'd try and be cool like that too. I'm not even going to lie. I'm like, I see you shitheads. You don't see us, though, do you? Yeah, it's okay. That's why we're recon and you're sitting on post at 3 a.m. on the side of a mountain right now. So yeah, fair enough. Cool.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, so I got nothing on any of that, but I always enjoyed deer hunting if I can get either high enough in a tree or far enough off to where people are working my area, walking underneath me and have no idea I'm sitting up there. And I just enjoy sitting up there and just watching it and being like, all right, I'm heading pretty well here. Same with duck hunting. if I choose not to put any decoys out or anything like that. Just seeing people come into your spot. I had a guy come in with a shotgun drawn, wanting to shoot at my decoys one day, and I'm like, "Get out of here quick!"
He was like,
they taste like shit. Yeah.
oh,
It's a cool feeling. It's a cool feeling, and that's one of those. It is an adrenaline rush. I remember a few times. Even in the city of Fallujah during the push, we would have guys literally walk right by us. And you got your pistol, and you say, "Okay, I'm gonna pop this guy. I'm gonna pop this guy." Oh, and then he walks by, you're like, "Oh shit, that was," and no idea you're there, and you say, "All right, well, I'm doing something right." I've made this hide proper, and and or you see you taking shots, you can see people frantically trying to find you in this. We in our world we call it recon by fire, but it's just bad. It's bad guys spray and pray and just shooting the shit out of stuff. You're thinking, oh, they have no idea where I am. Like I did something right, So it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to know that, all right, I've made this decision to come here, and I haven't got myself my team killed yet. So yeah.
Yeah, my buddy was the medic for one of our scout sniper teams, and he was always telling me the dudes would want to take a bunch of Imodium before they went out on a set, so they at least wouldn't have to take a dump for the 3-4 days when they were out there. You guys are doing these longer engagements, but they'd sit for 3 to 4 days usually on average.
That was one of the I remember our sniper school stories. Like, if you're on this hide and you might have to crap yourself or piss yourself, or I'm ever thinking like, all right, that's something that I'm prepared for. And I can say, and I'm proud that if I had to take a crap out in combat, I would just kind of excuse myself and take a crap. I've been shot a bunch of times, so I've made a bunch of bad decisions, but I've never had a piss. But
Have you ever been shot at or blown up when you're taking a shit though?
Never.
I have. we were just doing an Overwatch on Route Michigan of all places in Western Baghdad, and we backed up against the concrete wall. And so I shuffle up, sitting there pinched in between the door and everything. I've got a picture of this, believe it or not, from my gunner. Took off my IDA back when that was the body armor you wore. And no shit, 50 meters in front of our vehicle, just off to the right, is one of our platoons that was doing route Overwatch where they were coming by and got blown up right there about 50 to 100 meters off. And I still remember jumping back up in the truck and catching and rip stopping the whole leg off my pants. I'm stuffing baby wipes out the crack at the top of the window as we're starting to secure the perimeter. And then he put duct tape around your pants just to hold them together long enough to go clear houses for 3 hours. I was like, all right, well, that's an experience. That's a story, I guess.
So I got to take a shit while sitting with my 240. I was just up on this like 3-foot mud wall, and we'd been there already for like 3 hours. We had found an IED. We're waiting for EOD, and we all know how long that takes. So waiting for EOD to come out there, and I'm like, I can't hold it. I'm on this little wall, and I'm like, well, nobody's right around me. So I'm just like one hand, slide my pants down, squat behind this wall and hold on to it, try and take a shit. All right. Oh, I can't wipe. All right. Well, this is going to be fun. Like, don't know how much longer we're going to be out here. I was so thankful because not 10 minutes later, we actually got engaged because EOD showed up, and then everyone kind of moved to try and get them in there. And then all of a sudden shit hit the fan. But I was like, oh, thank God. I could have held that, and then it'd just be in my pants right now, and that would not be a good situation.
I did one time. I was at an Iraqi police station, and there was a small US COC, and I get there, and I ran to the Porta John. I had to go bad. I dropped my pants, and it was pitch black, and I remember I slipped a little bit. My feet slipped out from underneath, and I knew what it was immediately, and I started gagging, and my pants, my boots were full of shit, and it wasn't mine, which is I could have accepted my own, So I dropped my boots, dropped my pants. I walked to the COC, had never met me, and I was like, and they're like, what the fuck? What is going on here? I was like, I'm Gunny Matter, and I just went into one of your people's shit. So I was like, I need pants right now, or I'm gonna. I was free. If I would have ever went crazy and killed people, it would have been that day, because I was never. That was probably 15 years ago, and I still gag. I still gag when I think about that. That was the worst moment of my life, and that's and I was wearing like I remember someone I wore like a pair of like medium regular pants that didn't fit me right, and I was pissed off. Like, that was the worst day of my life. I'm getting mad thinking about it now.
Yeah. Man, I remember going to an Iraqi police station. This is in downtown Baghdad with a big HESCO barrier walls built up really high. And I went in there and it still astounds me to this day, the type of plumbing they're able to get away with as a country,
right,
where it's just like a hole in the ground, PVC tube going out the side, and you got your grandmother's water bucket for the flowers that you're going to pour and get the stuff down. And I went and laid in the most beautiful soft serve ice cream that I have ever laid. And I poured a little bit of water over it, and I'm like, all right, well, I tried, knowing full well the lowest enlisted Iraqi police dude is going to be back in there later cleaning it up by hand. But I'm just like, I got to get out of here, man. We're not here for long. Sorry, bud. I've also had to burn some shit and do some things I didn't want to do, but
shit detail.
Yep.
That's the stuff I always like. If somebody says, how do I ask a veteran about their stories? And I usually try to entertain it a little bit, but I'll usually be like, ask them the weirdest place they've ever had to take a shit.
Right.
Like, you can't get through even a non-deployment experience. There's got to be a good shit story in there somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Always. And food's always, I enjoy food. I still like Arab food. Still my favorite, and honestly, like, I would go right now to the chow hall at where was that? Camp Fallujah. I'd skip any food here to go there eat. I miss that food. It was few and far between for us, but I really enjoyed that. So people always say, "Oh yeah, it must have been horrible to eat." No, man, the food's good if you can ever figure it out. Food is always good.
Did you get to go through Leatherneck at all?
I've been through Leatherneck. Didn't spend, because of my job, I spent the majority of my time out in FOBs and But when I would, I'd always take advantage.
There's like the 5 days prepping to go out to Kajaki, and then that like 5 days you get when you're coming back.
Right.
And the smell of like female perfume for the first time in however long, and then there was a sandwich shop. We didn't even bother going to the what they call it, the DFAC. Why would I go to the DFAC line? Just go to the sandwich shop.
Right.
And you could toast bread, and they had all kinds of lunch meats. And I was like, this is the greatest sandwich I've ever had in my life right here. Before and after, and flushing toilets for the first time in that last 7 months or so. That was incredible, watching your shit actually leave and not have to deal with it.
I remember a time they we were out, and I was in the Euphrates for a while, and I had longer hair. We were talking about my bald now, but I had longer hair, and I had facial hair at the time. And we were wet for about a week, and I got back, and it's by SOP you debrief immediately before you clean the weapons, before you do anything, you debrief. We were so gross. Our boss was like, "Hey, get out of my face for an hour. Come back in an hour." There was 5 of us, so we all we're all sick of each other's face. We all went our own way. Well, everyone else, I didn't think about this. Everyone else went and showered. And my fat ass went to the chow hall, and I got a whole cheesecake. And I sat underneath like a fig tree and ate a whole cheesecake, and in an hour I come waddling back, and and everyone else is like cleanly shaven, and their hair was better. They smelled good. And they're like, "Man, what the fuck?" I was like, "Oh, I wasn't ate." I was like, I was like, "I'm not gonna lie, fellas. I never even considered taking a shower." I was like, I just want to get a cheesecake in me, So they called me dirty kid for, and even when I retired, they called me dirty kid. I'm like, well, like, you can call me by my name, that'd be nice.
Right.
Yeah. So it was, So that's, I guess I had my priorities were kind of screwed up, So.
I don't know. Cheesecake's pretty fucking awesome. So
they're wonderful. And I would skip a shower right now to go eat a cheesecake.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yep.
We got lucky a couple times. We were working we covered Sadr City north all the way to a town called Husaniya up on the northeast side of Baghdad. And over in that town of Husaniya, it was like, there was no real combat happening there. It was actually super chill. And so we found this Kurdish dude who had a chicken stand where he'd rotisserie him out next to the street, and we would stop and feed the whole platoon for $20 and like stuffed in a up armored Humvee in 100 degrees. I remember just eating like essentially doner kebab, and I was just like, oh my God, this is so good. And I haven't gotten chicken that good yet, but I found it at a Greek restaurant in Chicago. I got close once, but like you say, like that food, man, there's something with
Afghan foot bread.
Right. Right.
Afghan foot bread. Oh, yep. I'd pay for that right now.
Right. I figured I've eaten about 2 pounds of Iraqi spit in my life, or 2 gallons, and I'm cool with it. You know, that was that bread, that foot bread, and that like football looking bread in Iraq.
Yeah.
Yeah, naan bread.
That's wonderful.
Naan
Naan
bread.
bread. Yeah.
The only sketchy part was sitting down with locals to try and eat, and then realizing like, well, they're not pulling out plates, and there's just a big
Yeah.
pile of the shit in the middle of the room. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm just gonna grab this whole ass potato and just.
Right. And then they'd pick food up and try to give it to you. You're like, nah, bro.
Yeah, but I watched you use piss to wash your face and hands earlier, dude.
Yeah.
I don't want nothing to do with that. I'll get my own. Thanks, so.
I don't want to be rude, but
Yeah.
All those cultural competency cards that's like, oh, your left hand, don't ever touch with your, and then the dude hands you some food with the left hand. You're
Yeah,
like,
and you're like,
that goes against everything I know.
yeah, you're like that's actually illegal, isn't it? Yeah. Or like, don't show on the bottom of your foot. You know?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just about to say that.
You know, I was always polite to people, especially I was in their house. You know, I took a lot of pride in, you know, if they need to be killed, I'd kill them. But if they didn't, you know, I'd give them a hug too. You know, and
Yeah.
you know, I never wanted to be disrespectful to people in their own home, because I figured shit is going to happen one day in America, and I don't want these people doing this to my family. You know, but you know, if I had to cross my legs or sit like I wanted to sit, I didn't really give a shit. You know, like if they accidentally seen the bottom, and I don't think they gave a shit either. You know, so it's
Yeah.
I was gonna say some of the ANA or the Afghan National Army and the Afghan National Police guys that we worked with, it was kind of like the same thing as, you know, shooting the bird to your buddy. It was like,
right.
if it was a random stranger, they'd take offense to it, but once you kind of build that rapport with them, just walk around and like randomly lift up your foot at them, and they laugh. They lift theirs up at you, and you're like, okay, cool.
Right.
I know you're just flipping me off right now.
Yep.
What's funny is that's like a way to show love to somebody, right? Like that's one of the nicest things I could do to you. If I greet you when I come in the room, be like, hey fucker, and I flick you off,
Right.
That's the most sincere form of
that means
flattery.
that I like you.
Yeah. And then
I'm like, oh, hello, how you doing, man? Hey. And
well, you know, in a way that goes back to our initial conversation about you know, military people getting in the police department. You know, I don't know if that scares people. You know, if how I, you know, like you know, you and I, we talked to each other for half hour, you know, a month ago, and within a half hour, all right, you're a jarhead, I'm a jarhead. We started talking to each other like Marines, and we were buddies real quick, you know. And I imagine that's intimidating for a lot of people, because from the outside, our conversations may have been a little, let's say, rugged, you know.
Yeah.
And they don't have enough respect for us to think, all right, John doesn't have the ability to be rugged around his friends and not an idiot around a woman that he's pulling over for speeding, you know, which is I take offense to that. And I hope most military takes offense to it, because they're saying that, you know, you're not intelligent enough to understand your surroundings, you know, which is it's absolutely ridiculous, you know, and it's embarrassing. It should be embarrassing for that guy who said it, you know, and it's you know, and I think, you know, in a way, as military guys, especially guys that, you know, I don't have life figured out by any means. I fucked up millions of times, but I have the professional part of my life figured out pretty well. And it should be up to people like me and people like us, you know, to represent the military in that fashion, saying, okay, I can be a professional. You know, I'm covered in tattoos, but if I go to, you know, meet my girlfriend's parents, I'm not going to say the F word. I'm going to wear a sweater, you know, like, you know, you got to be, if you know, and in the military, we become professionals at being situationally aware. And then, you know, and that's just it's the same tactic, but it's a different application when you become a civilian. You know, don't talk about your dick in front of chicks. You know, don't call people faggot or fucker until you understand that your you know, your surroundings are secure. You know,
right.
You know, and apparently enough people have made that mistake that this idiot felt comfortable talking about military people going into the police department. You know, and it's sad.
Well, I kind of found out, you know, you talk about life being a series of good, and, you know, we have each of us have stubbed our toes, I'm sure, enough times, but like, I started to get to where like my professional life was doing so well to the point that I actually needed to be around some of you guys again.
Right.
And so like getting into some of these veteran service organizations, I was always searching for it. And I think that, you know, the closest I've gotten is with Combat Vets Motorcycle Association, because I think the guys who choose the lifestyle of riding motorcycles generally are maybe living closer to that kind of stuff. And so for me, man, it's been a boon. It's like being able to kind of let down your guard and relax and
I need to be on the edge just a little bit, because I can't, I don't get to just go to the range and shoot guns, blow shit up all the time. That's not my normal life anymore.
Right.
And ammo's expensive, goddammit. So, and I'm not shooting on taxpayer dime anymore.
Right.
So now I got to find other ways to try and just feed that little monster in the back of your head that says you want to do some wild shit, but you get arrested for doing that shit now. So calm down. What are you going to do now?
You know,
I feel like leads into that alcohol, drug abuse, all kinds of other stuff. I myself had to go to rehab for alcohol. Like I got my OWI, I've got my bad past and stuff like that. I know a lot of them do. That's just unfortunately a normal story that seems to come out of most people. And obviously working on it now and trying to better myself and talking to guys like you and seeing how you veered off of that path and what you did right and what didn't work for you. And yeah, the CVMA, the Combat Vets Motorcycle Association, was a nice touch. I get to meet a lot of guys that went through similar stories and still going through stuff, and kind of have that camaraderie and stuff that we were used to, that you don't really have when you get out until you start finding those kind of people.
Right. You know, one of my big things, you know, I speak often. I speak to police departments. I speak to civilians about leadership and, you know, and how I you know, bring military tactics into my civilian life, and how, you know, I use 5-paragraph order weekly to plan everything. You know, I'm kind of belt fed that way, but I found a way that works for me, you know, and I found myself over and over and over talking to police department saying, you know, if you see kids dying, if you are encountering, you know, child abuse and all these horrible things you see as a police officer every day, if you don't have some sort of PTSD, you're wrong. Something's wrong with you if you're not emotionally, you know, kicked in the nuts by this situation. So I was the biggest advocate. You need to go get help. You need to talk to somebody. You know, you need to find a like-minded group. You need to go find a therapy group. And I would say that, and then I would go home and be like, that's just not for me, you know. And then right. And then about a year and a half ago, I said, I need to make some changes. I was just, you know, I wasn't sleeping. I was unhappy with my life. And, you know, I was doing good. I was doing good financially, but everything else was shit for me, you know? And, you know, I wasn't sleeping. I was having panic attacks. So I actually went to the VA and said, hey, I'm fucking broken, you know? And I found an outstanding group of people, you know, that I still go to weekly, you know, and, you know, every single week I go to a group, and then I see a therapist, you know, one-on-one every other week. And it's literally changed my life. It 100% made me the person that when I looked in the mirror, I said, I am not happy with who that dude is. And since I've been going to therapy and just kind of getting shit off and figuring out, okay, this is what PTSD is. You know, it's like a broken knee more than it's like a death sentence. You know, if you treat it right, it'll get better to the point where it's no longer a problem. You know, and when I realized that there's not a pill, you know, like the first day I walked in, I'm like, can I get a bunch of drugs so I can go be successful? You know, like, oh shit, that's what exists. Like,
you're going to the VA, so of course that was the thought process.
Yeah, but
no offense, Adam. No offense.
But they had no interest in giving me anything. They said, yeah, this is what you need to do, and they, you know, they've helped me to the point where I am healthier and happier with who I am right now than I have been ever in my life. You know, and it's and I hear a lot, especially being in a veteran community. I hear a lot about, you know, anti-VA type stuff. I simply don't have a bad VA story. I really don't. And I've had bullets taken out the VA. I have a vestibular nerve stimulator put in my brain at the VA. Well, actually at Freighter, but the VA set that up, and, you know, but you know, I have so many good stories other than, you know, if I had the sniffles, I'd be fucking dead before I got in to see my doctor. But that's that's a problem.
That seems to be the biggest complaint, though. That seems to be the only one that's really there. I was just going off of that Toma issue that we had a couple years back,
Right.
where they were just like, I got a little tightness in my chest. They're like, here's some opium for it. Take that. Oh, okay, cool. I was thinking about setting up a hearing test. Take some opium. There you go. That'll help that shit. But no, I'm on the same boat. I've heard a lot of people hate on the VA, and I've never had a bad experience. I've been to 4 different VA clinics from Michigan, Madison, Texas, 2 in Texas, actually. But yeah, every place I've been to, it could be a tiny little place, it could be a big ass hospital, but I've always had good experiences. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to get in there, but of course it does. Why wouldn't it? There's a lot of veterans out there, and
right. And if they could change that, I'd like to think they would. And I'd like to think they're trying to streamline stuff. But once you get into VA, once you're actually face to face with somebody, I don't think it gets much better as far as quality of care. So
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I feel like I shouldn't say anything here or there, but I am not speaking on behalf of VA when I run this podcast. I am an employee of the VA, but before I was an employee, I was down in Chicago for a while. I was personal training, doing stuff like that back when I was physically fit, and I played a bunch of Australian football over the course of the weekend. And my body was super tight. And I went, and on that Monday, I did somebody else's workout, and we did a bunch of walking lunges around the building. And it was just like, I knew going into it, I was like, this is too many lunges for me, as tight as I am. And no shit, I had probably 3 steps to go before I got in the door and I was done with my workout. And I ripped off one of my quad muscles straight off my pellet or off my hips. I had what's called an avulsion fracture. And so I laid flat on the table, and I literally couldn't lift my leg up. It was the muscle that was responsible for that movement. So I go to the emergency department in the south side of Chicago, and I get in there,
and I get south side too.
Well, it's I'm narrowing people in if they know which hospital it's talking about. But so I laid in the ER. They get me seated in a room, and I'm the kind of guy who, like, I get more joy out of when somebody realizes they made a mistake than helping them, which is not a good trait. It's probably held me back in some of my career. I literally sat in that room for 7 hours listening to all the conversation in the emergency department. And I remember finally it got to the point to where I heard him start to go, why is this, who is this guy? Who's this person? And it's because I was still showing up on their list. And they're like, well, where is he? They couldn't find me. And I didn't go anywhere. I went where they put me.
Right.
And when they realized I was still in there and hadn't been seen by that orthopedic specialist yet, that you could just hear it. And I take far too much joy in that. And so I eventually saw the guy. He's like, yeah, it sucks. I can't do anything for you. He's like, just chill out for a while. It'll get better. It'll find its way back up there. And I was like, well, that's confidence inspiring. But
right.
He was right. It eventually did. But I still remember 7 hours just laying there, just being like,
say 7 hours for them to tell you, just go sit somewhere else.
Well, that's like the military trains you to sit there and shut up until you're told otherwise. Right. And so for me, it was a little bit of that too. I was like, I'm just going to sit here and shut up until it's my, I'm not going to speak out. Now today it's different. I know the system. I would have walked out there and talked to him right away, but thinking of the VA stories. So
did you sell those gyms off before COVID, or was that during COVID?
Oh, okay. I did. I got lucky about 2 years ago. And so I was injured. I moved back to Wisconsin, and I just started going to a gym just to kind of move around and be around like-minded folk. And I met a gentleman that owned Walkshopping Martial Arts. His name's Reese Shaner, and him and Reese is a very well-known heavyweight. He was a champion for a long time, a very well-respected heavyweight fighter. So he asked me after a while to become his partner, and so I was training there. Reese died in a motorcycle accident a couple of years ago. And so we were going back and forth on what we wanted to do with the gym. I wasn't really interested in owning a gym, by myself, and it was kind of a minor Reese thing. While we were going through that process, Duke Rufus and a gentleman named Scott Jaffe, who actually owns Rufus Sport with Duke, and Rufus Sport is one of the better known gyms on earth. And they're they pump out UFC fighters and world champions all the time. And Duke asked me if I would come and be an instructor at his gym. And I actually I was a kickboxing and jiu-jitsu instructor for a little bit, or more of a kickboxing instructor. And then I went and I developed a kind of a self-defense, a very aggressive, simple movements, mindset training. So I developed that program. We called it Rufus Matter Combatives. And I was teaching that out of the Rufus headquarters in Milwaukee. And a few months after I started doing that, I got the opportunity to buy Rufus Sport Gym. I took that opportunity. And at the same time, I was running that gym, and I was running my consulting company. And, in order to do your due diligence and you have to make a decision, and I did, at least. I didn't have the ability to run, two separate entities and give them the respect and time they both deserved. And I was lucky enough to be able to sell my Rufus Sport Gym, and I did okay with that. And then I got to, and that was also what I was talking about with, my PTSD problems. I was kind of going through that. It wasn't helping. And I was becoming an unpleasant person. I didn't like myself. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't pleasant to be around. And, so I had to make a decision, and my decision was to sell gyms and this contract on this consulting stuff, because that's what I really like, and I'm much better security consultant and tactical advisor than I am a fighter instructor. So.
Yeah, and I mean the nice thing is you have this business now, but you can always still go to the gym.
Oh, absolutely.
Get that out of your system if that's something you're really wanting to do, or you can just go get a workout in or something like that. So.
And I do it. I do it several times a week. I go do jujitsu. I don't like kickbox anymore. It's just, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I got like maybe 2 headshots left in me, so I don't need to get kicked in the head anytime soon. So you can go do jujitsu and pace yourself and get a good workout, get to beat up on people. It's a great stress reliever for me. Actually this shirt I'm wearing, a good friend of mine in LA named Jose Gasca. He's a he worked with me in the Marine Corps, and now he's a Los Angeles police officer, and he started this nonprofit. It's he understood the importance of getting like-minded people together and doing something combative. So it's called Fighting Hold Jiu-Jitsu, and it's a nonprofit. If anyone's in the LA area, they can look him up, and he'll hook them up with a gi and mat time and stuff. And he's a wonderful guy to do wonderful things. So so that's what I do with my martial arts now. It's my therapy, and I go in there and beat people up and get my ass kicked by from the other kids. It's not bad.
Well, say his name and how to get a hold of him again if he's doing that nonprofit, and for anybody listening that's in the Southern
his name is Jose Gasca. He's a Los Angeles police officer. You can find him on Instagram and Facebook at Fighting Whole Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So outstanding organization.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, so how did you get it? So, I mean, outside of getting to the point that you're at, how did you even get into MMA, or like, what was that whole timeline?
I was, so my first job in the military, I was living in Virginia, right outside of Virginia Beach, and I was competitive. I wrestled and, played sports, and then I was playing college football, and I just needed to compete. So I started going to a kickboxing jiu-jitsu gym, which I knew nothing about either, in Virginia at first. And within about 2 or 3 months, I'm like, dude, I can start. I want to start competing, because I just wanted to do it. I don't care if I win or lose. Obviously I want to win, but I loved getting there and just fighting, So for like 2 years, maybe even 3 years, I just drove up and down the East Coast on my weekends, without my command's permission.
I was going to ask that.
No, I never asked. I made a mistake of asking after like 2 or 3 years, and they're like, we don't think so. And I was like, all right, I'll never fucking ask you again, But so I would go to tough man competitions, like fighting bars, and just get the shit beaten out of me at Indian reservations, and I'd find fights wherever I could. Sometimes I'd fight like twice in a weekend, and
that's exhausting.
Yeah.
Well, it's just I was a scrub fighting other scrubs, but wasn't making any money until I moved to North Carolina and I got a little more situated. I made a name for myself, and I started fighting for organizations, and I was never a good fighter, but I fought for a long time. If I ever would have, I tell myself this now because I don't fight anymore. If I would have put more time and, if I would have left the Marine Corps and said, okay, I'm going to concentrate on becoming a fighter, I would have been better, but I liked my job. It was my hobby, and
quite
it was
the
good.
fucking hobby.
Yeah, it was a good hobby for me, and I made a few bucks, and it was, my ears got kicked off and beat to shit. But other than that, I'm still kicking, and it was something important for me, and that's what I was kind of saying before is, the last time I got shot, all of a sudden, I'm no longer a gunfighter. I'm no longer a pugilist. I'm no longer a prize fighter. I'm just fucking John Matter, and I had no intent of being just John Matter, and I struggled with that for a good amount of time until I found my identity or rebuilt my identity,
We'll talk about that. I mean, the work that I do. So I found my own path, right? I got out of the military. It took me about a year and a half before I finally went into the VA, and I kind of pieced together what I needed. And now there's therapies that like do it, right? So now it's part of me is like, God damn it, you telling me there was a workwork for that I could have done instead of just bumping and figuring it out.
Instead of just getting out and drinking and doing psychedelics.
I didn't do that.
Apparently I took the wrong route here. We got MMA fighters and the workbook that he found, and it all worked. I decided I was just going to get out and quote find myself the way that I saw the hippies do. Did you fucked up all the time?
Did you find yourself?
Yeah, I found myself in jail.
Hey, at least you knew where you were, right?
Right. And then I decided, this place isn't fun. I don't think I want to come back here. So I'm going to go talk to the VA, figure out what else I can be doing.
Right.
And then I get to talk to cool fuckers like you guys. So it's working out so far. I just got to stay on this path.
Well, so this is it, right? This is one of these things is like, we actually, if we all go and decide that we're going to be, Mr. House Husband or whatever, and hide behind our white picket fences, like, I don't think that's it. Like, we still have to have our connections with military people or military things. And when I started to bring back what I missed about the military and integrated that with my regular life, that was every day I got a little better. And, I'm probably not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but like, I continue, when I talk to people, if I'm ever doing anything motivational or in a group format where folks are listening to me, I'll even insert language about goal setting with the idea of land navigation. Like we may want to get 2 clicks away, but we got to do it 100 meters at a time. We've got to be able to find something to point at and start walking to. But we also have to know how many steps it takes us to get there. We have to know ourselves, be a little self-aware. And I think even using that metaphor, I think sometimes it can pull us back in and remember how do we even use to set goals? Like you say, you still use your 5-paragraph system. Like, it works. Pull that stuff back in.
Right. Well, in that 5-paragraph system, it also says what, you talk about, MP COA, enemy's most probable course of action, MP DOA, enemy's most dangerous course of action. So you plan in, this is what's going to go wrong during that 3-click movement, and so you can set up barriers for yourself saying, if this happens, because, people lie to themselves, say, failure's not an option. Bullshit.
That's
bullshit. It is an absolute option, and if you're doing impressive things, you're going to fail in the process, right? If your only goal is to, work at a corner store, you might become a very successful person, as far as reaching your goals, because, hey, shit, I never fail. But if you have any sort of lofty goal or any sort of impressive goal, you're going to fail. So if you set in those, hey, this is what failure looks like. This is what absolute failure looks like. And this is when I say, okay, I got to pop smoke, go back to start point and say, I got to rethink this whole situation, and that's, and if you're confident, and if you're confident in your impressive movements, saying, hey, this, my end goal is cool enough for me to fail once or twice in the process, but if you got kids, like I had kids, and if you had a family, I had a family, that has to take precedence, and, say, okay, this is what failure is for, for John Matter, and this is what failure is for Matter family, which is 2 different things. I couldn't just say, oh, okay, sorry kids, we don't have a house anymore because, dad's swinging for the fence. Dad's swinging for the fences and fucked up, so it's so it that was kind of going back to, our original question is, when I was getting out, I was lucky enough to be successful. I knew what success felt like to me, when I said, okay, I was successful in my military career, successful in my fighting career, and I was completely terrified to get out. I had no interest in getting out, but I was broken down, and I was
Didn't get much of a choice at that point.
no, yeah, they showed me the door, and I had zero. What at the time I knew I had zero civilian life skills. Now I know that, if all I got to do is reword a few things, and you can become successful using military kind of terminology and mindset, and goal setting is goal setting, and being successful is generic enough that you can kind of do it anywhere you want. But but at the time, I had a wife that we weren't around each other for a long period of time. And when I retired, we kind of looked at each other and said, shit, we don't like each other. We had very pointed, calm conversations like, I don't like you. Yeah, I don't like you either. So, and I was too proud to get divorced, because I said, shit, I lost the military, I lost fighting. I don't want to lose my family, and I was too proud to say I was divorced. That's something that my family doesn't do. And, so I struggled through a very unhappy marriage for several years. And, and I went and tried to fight, and you brought up the picket fence thing. I tried that. I said, okay, I'm no longer Gunnery Sergeant Matter, gunfighter. I'm Mr. Matter, taker of kids to school, and
An entrepreneur.
And so I covered my tattoos up, and I learned how to tie a tie, and I was working at this company, and it was a cool company. It was an engineering company, and I liked the job, but I hated putting that tie every morning, putting a tie on. I'm like, fuck, I hate myself, and and then I would, I had no interest in being Mr. Matter, no interest at all, and, I was lucky enough to sit out. Well, first I was lucky enough to be medically retired. So I made enough money to take a few chances, and that was a whole process. That was a very stressful process, because originally they said, I remember I put my paperwork in for retirement, and again, I was shot 9 times, have 3 Purple Hearts, and I got my original paperwork back saying 0% disability, unfit for duty, So they were literally gonna drive me to the front gate and say, go fuck off, and it hurt my feelings, because I thought they'd be like, Matter, and then chant me out, like hear me out, like war hero here, and they're like, yeah, get the fuck out, and well, long story short, with that, I ended up having to stand tall in front of a board of colonels at the Naval Yard in DC, explain to them, hey, this is what I did, maybe this is why there's not a cause and effect, and they said, well, we appreciate you coming, and basically we're going to take care of you, or we're going to do what's right for you. And shortly after that, I was medically retired properly. But I mean, that was a year process, and that year process where I was angry with the military, which I didn't like, because I liked the military. I wasn't proud of myself. I wasn't, I lost my security clearances, so I wasn't acting in my capacity. So I was just kind of, breathing other folks' oxygen. It was a bad. My transition from military to civilian was not the way I wanted it to happen. And then I get out, and I wasn't. I should have probably went to the VA right away. Not should have. I should have absolutely went to the VA right away. I started getting help. Yeah. But I said I could figure it out myself, and so I struggled for a couple of years. I'm not very proud of who I was, and I wasn't drinking or doing drugs or anything more than but I just wasn't happy with who I was. I was having nightmares, waking up pissed off, taking out on my kids and my wife. And, I was an unpleasant person, and not that I'm a good person now, but I'm a much more pleasant person than I was even a year and a half ago, and there's a direct correlation between liking who I am and being successful in the civilian world, so it's, and I found a way to take my military experiences and say, like we were talking with the police department, I know how to dominate situations with a gun or verbally, and I know how to do it in a civilian environment without, knife handing folks and calling people dickhead and say, come here, shit brains. And, so, not that I have it figured out by any means, but, I figured out enough that I'm comfortable where I am right now. And I think I'm kind of going up. So
I think one of the biggest issues I've seen so far, and I know I was one of them, is you join and your skill set. In my mind, you'd come out and then it's like, okay, well, just go apply for a job and be like, cool, I can shoot a motherfucker from this far away. Like, I'll read the shit out of a map. Like, don't fuck with
right,
me. The land nav is my shit. Like, I can figure all this out. And trying to correlate all your skills that you actually obtained into a civilian word set that you can put on resumes that make sense to them.
right,
And initially just finding the job in the first place. So I got out and I'm like, okay, well, now what do I do? I was working under the table for $10 an hour renovating this diner in this small ass town where my folks live. I'm like, well, what are we doing today? Oh, we're going to put some flooring in. Oh, today we're going to put a drop ceiling in. I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything I've learned over the past 4 years. And I don't know how to apply any of that anywhere.
right,
And nobody is there to help you anymore. And they put you through like your steps and taps and all that other crap. And it's really just them being like, yeah, so you'd fill out a resume and then you apply for the job. All right, go talk to the disability folks and see if you can get enrolled wherever. And I'm like,
yep, yep,
you put all this time and effort into learning whatever your job is, and it doesn't really matter what it is. You can apply skill sets out of there. There are a lot of jobs that are much more beneficial in civilian life. Like I had a buddy, he got made fun of for 4 years because he worked in the air wing, and now he gets paid like a little over six figures to paint
right,
fucking airplanes. And I'm
right,
like, okay, so I guess I'm the asshole here. Like,
right.
and I don't know how they can actually go about fixing that, but it seems like that was almost a similar issue for you. You get out, you have all these skills, but they've just not told you how to actually build off of that or what to do after that. They're just like, cool, thanks for
It's hard to
your
let go
service,
too,
go
though.
on.
It's super
Right.
hard to let go of that stuff. Like
Yeah,
when your identity is curated upon your merit, like the things that you do is a big part of your identity. Well, then you get out and you're no longer that, it's not how you're compensated anymore, which is a big part of our motivation.
right.
And so how do you do it? Like, that's why I'll talk to folks about hunting and stuff like that. John, you've been able to find different ways to apply it, but like, how can we take some of these things and apply them in some fashion of our lives? I can get passionate about my work, but then I can also make sure I'm doing the other fun stuff too that I miss.
Right, right. Well, and I think it's important to know very simply how to civilianize the words you use to describe what you did. Because I've read resumes that that they talked about they went to Ranger school. Okay, who gives a
What's
shit?
that mean? Yeah.
Right. They talked about they're a 6-time expert on the rifle range. Okay, who gives a shit? They talked about I was let's just say, hey, I was a sergeant in a motor pool. Okay, who gives a shit? But let's go back. You had the dedication to be chosen one out of X amount of people to go to Ranger school. That's how you explain that. And you were an expert with your issued rifle. That means that you put more work in than the average person. That's how you explain that. You're a sergeant in a motor pool, and that means you were a 25-year-old that was in charge of $1 million+ worth of equipment. And if people understand that it's as simple as that, that's how you explain what you did. I wish I had my original resume that I wrote when I was in like 7th and half. I listed all the schools I went to, which is, if I was trying to get a job with a French Foreign Legion, that would have been pretty badass, but no one else fucking cared, and I listed all my deployments, which no one gave a shit about. No, I never handed this resume to anybody, but my original resume was just all the cool shit I've done over the past 15 years, and I had no idea how to explain the civilian terms of what I was doing, and I've gotten good at that, and I try to push that information out, and that's what's good about podcasts like yours is people say, oh, okay, I did that. This is how I explain, to a potential employer, this is why I'm an impressive person. This is why you should hire me,
Yeah.
And I've actually given this speech. I spoke at General Jones has a thing called the Leaders of Industry Symposium. He's got big shots from all these big companies. And I went and talked and I said, this is what you can expect from, E1. You know, if for some odd reason you get a 19-year-old E1 in your employ, you know, they're not going to be out of the box thinkers. You tell them to get there at 7, they're going to get there at 6:45. You know, they're going to shut the fuck up. They're going to get their work done. And when their task is done, they're going to be sitting outside your room or your office at parade rest waiting for another task, you know. And I went all the way to what I did at my rank and said, you know, this is what you can expect if you would hire me. You know, I'm going to be as close to a fire forget weapon as you get. You give me an idea, I'll turn that idea into a task. I'll break that task down into, you know, smaller tasks, and I will give you a finished product in when you tell me to get it done, you know. And then I will tell you how to better that product next time, and I'll be waiting for your next mission, you know. And you know, in that process, while I was trying to create this speech, I found out, okay, military people are impressive in that way. You know, we can take, you know, what other people are in college learning, you know, kind of intangible things. We're learning real tangible skills on accomplishing missions and taking suggestions, turning them into tasks, you know, or taking a task and saying yes sir and grinding through it until it's done, you know. And I think that's the most important thing people need to know about the military. That's not Marine Corps, that's military period, you know.
Yeah. Well, the mission-driven nature of people, like I think in the civilian world, people are driven by different motivations, whether it's money or, you know, personal motivations, whatever it is. But like, if you can get somebody, a veteran, excited about what you're trying to do with your organization, you have a different employee on your hands.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, something I was thinking of is, I got this buddy, Phil. He did his full career, infantry series, Army guy, Ranger qualified, did Panama and all that crap back in the 80s, 90s, whenever that happened, and subsequent deployments the rest of the way through. This dude is now, so I started working with him. I met him doing an entrepreneur school down at Louisiana State University, which is part of a Syracuse thing. It's the entrepreneurship boot camp for veterans. And so if veterans want to become entrepreneurs and you're greater than 30% service connected, you can go through a 2-week intensive training on entrepreneurship. It's one of the best things that exists out there.
Cool.
And John, you could do it now if you're bored enough and wanted a little help on how to further grow your business. But I met him there because he was retired and moved up to Alaska, where he'd bought property when he was active, and he was going to open a fly fishing business, and he did, and it was successful because that's what he does. Right. And he was starting to figure out what his next mission was going to be because he wanted to come back down to the lower half. And I remember I was like, well, send me your resume. You know, he's like, I'm applying for jobs, I'm not hearing back. I don't get this. And so I was like, send me your resume. And sure as shit, it looked like a board packet. You know, it's like, I was like, Phil, I hate to tell you, this looks like shit. Like I understand everything you did, and I would hire you in an instant if I saw it, but nobody else will. Nobody who understands what you did will. And so like, we kind of just kept sending it back and forth, and I kept kind of punching it up and changing things and talking to him more about each thing. And like you said, with Ranger School, most people don't even know the prerequisites to even be able to get a slot. You know, like people don't understand the selection processes or the indoctrination programs they used to do when he did it, how to even get in there. And they don't understand the multi-phase. They don't understand the odds of a failure and what a failure looks like in a recycle rate. And like, just, there's so much happening in there that once we were able to kind of conceptualize it, the next job he got offered down in, I think it was in like Savannah, Georgia. It was a high GS position for him. It was way above what he expected to even be qualified for.
Oh, perfect.
You know, though then he gets to move his whole life down there. And so of course, then he does that for 2 years. And he's like, I don't like working for the man. Dude, he's now living in Medellin, Colombia. He just rebuilt a Jeep Wrangler from the ground up. He's living the dream. It's like, get out of here, Phil.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know about living in Colombia as the dream, but
aside
from that,
there's an entire SOCOM community down there of expats, right? All dudes who are higher tier guys. And so like, they're all just these jacked 45, 50-year-old dudes with a bunch of toys. And you know,
they just got their own fob and you don't even know it, but it's there.
And so just thinking, like, just thinking of how do you take all that jargon and how do you make it deliverable for somebody else to digest, right? They're not going to eat MREs, you know. We gotta enhance this a bit and get it so it's palatable, not just potable.
I was going to ask you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Well, I say, and that should be, you know, when people figure out this recipe properly, they become wealthy teaching this properly. You know, simply saying, hey, you know, and that's a great thing military learn is we take criticism better than anybody. You're fat, you're stupid, your resume looks like shit. and you look like a retard. Like, yes, sir, fix me. And then, and if you could sit down with somebody, and give them an hour of your time and just kind of tell them your military experience and have them develop a resume. I mean, that would be a massive, multiplier for a young military person, and for me, I knew nothing, I knew nothing about, a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, not me because of what I did, but from a wine company, they're in charge of, they're in charge of 200 people, and where in the civilian world can you say, oh yeah, I'm in charge of logistics for 200 people? I mean, that's an impressive thing right there that you don't think about saying because, oh, that's my job, and I imagine people are getting better at it because, I'm not the first person to ever say this. So people understand that this is an absolute problem and something that needs attention of somebody, but I don't see them doing this in TAPS and SEPs. I don't see them doing this at the VA. There's an organization called VetsNet in Milwaukee that for a short amount of time I was there looking at people's resumes and doing just that, kind of doing mock interviews and saying, hey, this is what an elevator speech is. This is what it needs to sound like. This is what you have to be able to hit in these 3 minutes. This is how you impress people with your military. No one cares that you shot people, but I just didn't have time to stay, I was doing that as a, just helping out. And so, there's good things being done, but veterans, and you got to be your own advocate. You got to be able to say, hey, this is what I need to become more successful, and go find that help.
And I was going to ask you, John. I know you got MedSept, you had to medically retire.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it last time I saw you, but I didn't actually straight up ask you why you didn't possibly pursue that contractor life once you get out. So go work, Blackwater or something like that.
I had kids.
Kept you from
the only reason I have 4 kids, and I missed my 2 oldest ones. I was deployed. I was in Afghanistan and Iraq for both of their births, and as much as I wanted to stay in the military, the one silver lining saying, okay, I have the ability to be around my family like a normal person now. And I was looking forward to that. I'm very close to my parents. I'm very close to my brothers and their families, so I was looking forward to that becoming part of my life again. And, but I won't lie, there was a bunch of times where, I'd say to myself, I know where to go make $200,000 right now.
That's more what I was thinking. I was like, coming out and you were talking about the entrepreneurship and everything you were trying to figure out. And I'm like, yeah, I commend you because that easy cha-ching rolling up in your eyes, just be like, cool, well, I definitely have the skills. They'd be stupid not to hire me for 90% of these jobs out here.
And I've been offered, I still get offered, and right now I'm I've been fortunate enough to find my own path, but then I just kind of deep down, I knew, all right, I can make the money I want to make and be around my family as much as possible. So that was the only reason I didn't go in contract is my family.
Nice. That's good though. I'm happy for you because that doesn't exactly sound like the best life either. There's a reason they pay you guys so much money to go out there, and it's not just because you have high set of skills. It's because it ain't exactly the safest jobs, I'm sure.
Well, right. I mean, you have no artillery support. You have no wing or rotary support. I mean, you're out there basically.
You don't have that flag on your shoulder anymore.
Sir, you're not doing tough guy shit like we were, but you're still expected to do some stuff that you're like, shit, I'm doing this afraid not alone, or alone and not afraid. So yeah, so that's why they're compensated the way they are.
Yeah, I think back I don't want to not mention the point you talked about, like the senior manager that manages 200 people. I think the big difference between the military and the civilian side is in the military, when you're managing 200 people like the gunny would be, you're not responsible just for their professional career development and the time that they spend in your organization. You're responsible for their personal lives.
Right.
Like you're responsible for their ability and their medical care. You're responsible for coordinating all of that and managing that. And like, if somebody could find a way to to put that on their resume, it really is massive, because in the civilian side, that just does not exist.
Right.
I can only imagine it on there. Just yeah, I used to stop all these E2s from marrying strippers. Like you know, 14%, 22% APR on their Mustang that they decided to buy.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
This thing of, like, if an HR person at a corporation, called you and said, hey, John, sit down. The fuck you gonna marry this stripper for? What kind of, like, hey, you just bought a F-350, you idiot. Like, like, what are you doing with that? Like, at
park it at the barracks.
Yeah, at 19%, so to what you said, they're you become a life coach, you become, hey, I've seen you have this is your 11th STD. Maybe we didn't even talk about this, and in the real world, that conversation would never happen. So these guys are more intimate with, every part of their, it's you gotta be, if you know how to explain it. I keep saying it. If you know how to explain what you did in the military, you can become an impressive civilian quickly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. So I was a line medic. So I would hop on, and if, the next train out of town until we deployed, then I was attached. But we had this one guy who kept coming back into the clinic consistently. He'd be like, "Yeah, I got burned again." And I almost, one time, I finally looked at him and I was like, dude, I don't know if you're into this with me doing this to you, but this is not my kink. I'll happily rod you off the range, buddy. I'll make sure there's nothing down there. But I have to tell you, I don't enjoy this like you might. So if you enjoy it, tell me, fine. All right. At least I know what you got coming into the game. But
no, we had sergeants that would purposely come out and be like, hey, if you got any issues, come see me. And they always thought it was a joke. Like, I'm not going to go to him. He's a sergeant. Why would I go tell him anything? He's just going to fuck me up or make me police call the barracks or something.
Right.
We finally had one E3. It was like 2 weeks in. He's like, I got to go. I won't throw names, but he's like, hey, Sergeant, I got this issue. And he's like, well, what's going on? He gave him all the details. He was like, yeah, it sounds like you might have the clap. Just tell Doc you need some of those malaria pills, man. Take those shits for like a week. You'll be set. And I'm like, this is my life. This is what it is. I stand outside my barracks room and I listen to sergeants give lower junior Marines STD advice. Like, this is great.
Right.
My recruiter never told me I'd be like a low-key drug dealer for the military, that guys could come to me, hey, yo, I got the sniffles, man. Like, I got something for you, buddy. I got a cocktail.
Oh, yeah.
I got you.
And they used to give us all kinds of stuff, but that's a whole different conversation.
No, most we got from the corpsman was some nice IVs after a long weekend. You had to be buddies with them, obviously.
That's lifesavers right there.
Right?
Hey, man, that's training, right? Anytime I got to hook somebody up, it's training.
The cool thing was, I won't, again, only because I don't know if they want their name mentioned is the only reason I'm not mentioning names, but we'd
just
have a
say enough so that
like,
if they listen to it, they'll at least have a chuckle.
Right. Be like, there was a specific corpsman that if you were regularly bothering him with this kind of shit, he started making you train on it. So he'd be like, cool, well, you can put your own fucking IV in. I'll tell you how to do it. You're like, what? Just help me out, Doc. He's like, nope, you're going to do this. And he'd just point and tell you. Like, okay, this is weird.
Right.
Dude, how do you think we learned how to do it? Like, they initially, I think the first time we stuck, they had this like simulation arm, but you're sticking it in a rubber hose. It doesn't feel the same. So you'd set your arms out there and just go for it. And everybody's at some point, like, everybody's just all hacked up and blown up. Like, if you got in a real life emergency, the ER crew would be like, we can't do shit for you. Everything's blown out.
Right.
Yeah. Or they'd use you for demonstrations. So be like, oh yeah, we're going to show everyone how to do this in case you need to do it at some point. And they'd look around, they'd figure out who's asked for the most IVs after long weekends. Be like, all right, yeah, Simmons, come here. Like, shit.
Sure.
And I'd be like, okay, try and put my arm out there for him. And they're like, oh, no. How about we try and go through the hand this time? You motherfuckers.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Through the hand it is.
I remember I was a new line medic to this company, and as I was trying to build my street cred with these guys, because you have to, right? And so I put on a training about IVs for everybody as part of a combat lifesaver course, and I demonstrated with one of my good buddies. And as I started to go through the IV process, I used the largest needle I had just as a joke to mess with this dude. So I slam him with a large bore needle. And as I pull it out, I'm holding pressure on the catheter so he doesn't bleed. And then I turned around to everybody and I showed with both hands. I was like, it's really important that you push. And all of a sudden he's like with his arterial bleed. he must have drank the night before because it was going.
Oh man.
And so then I had this spurt, and I did it on purpose as a way to, he starts laughing. I was like, because otherwise that'll happen. And I was like, at that point I had the respect of my peers.
Oh, Adam, you'll probably know what this is. I can't remember what the hell it was called, but it was that shit that goes right into your sternum that really you have to like shove down. What is that called?
Intraosseous, what's the word? Infiltration.
Yeah.
If that's like with kids, you do it in their shin bone. With adults, you do it in their sternum.
The ultimate IV, right?
Yeah. So we had our whole battalion. So they only wanted to demonstrate it till one time. So the whole battalion is like circled up and they asked for a volunteer. Luckily it was somebody from a different one, but yep. I'm like, okay, we're going to volunteer and this dude's going to get this crazy sternum spike. And he was big old huge, spikes, giant guy. And you're thinking that's not going to be that big a deal. And that dude was crying.
Yeah, fuck that noise, dude. Nope.
Bawling almost. I'm like, yep, nope, fuck that. I don't ever want that, whatever that is.
Respect to the corpsman and respect to the dude who let that happen, because that's one of those things you generally don't live
fire. Oh no, it was brutal because you see him like try and put his weight into it, and then it didn't go all the way through, so he had to do it again. I think he did it 3 times trying to make sure that it went all the way down.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, nope.
Yeah, that's like
that big dude didn't try and throw him off.
Right in your. Oh man.
Yeah. No.
That's awesome. I love it. Good training.
I saw dudes with no legs getting tourniquets put on that didn't scream as much as that fucking kid.
Life changes when a little adrenaline hits the system. That's for sure.
Right. Jesus.
Right. So we kind of glossed over your military career. We've jumped around a little bit, but like, you know, is there a good funny story that needs to be told out of your military career, or anything that's, you know, that we haven't heard yet?
We already heard the poop story though. So
yeah, I got a couple poop stories. I told you my dirty person story. Yeah, I can't think of anything that popped in my head. I kind of went blank. You know, I had
what about funny run-ins with locals or something?
Well, I guess, you know, I was always a good swimmer, and I was at my buddy's wedding in Jamaica, and I jumped off the 3rd story, and jumped off 3rd story into the water, and then the security came after me, and I ran into the ocean. And I was probably 100 yards out, and they're yelling at me, "You gotta come back!" And I was like, "Fuck you!" I was like, "I can tread water." I said, "You guys work 9 to 5." I said, "I'll tread water till you have to switch, and I'll swim away." I was like, "I guarantee I can stay out here longer, and you need to stay out here." You know, so it's, and you know, and I was yelling back, "Don't tell my name."
Was that Myrtle Beach?
No, that was in Jamaica. I got a bunch of Myrtle Beach evasion stories too, but that's
where I got in the most trouble. Never got arrested though. They couldn't get me.
We jumped into the New River. I escaped from the police through the New River a few times and out into the ocean. You know, but
dude, what's funny is you're probably in a cab riding towards downtown, and some guys are thinking about what bar they're going to be, and this guy's picking out egress routes by bodies of water. He's like, "All right, this river is traveling north to south."
I do have a kind of a goofy story. So my best friend Tom Saunders, he worked for the Army Tier 1 groups, and he was a MARSOC legend. Godfather of my kids died in a helicopter accident, but godfather of my youngest, and me and him were together we were young Marines together. We lived together. He was always with me, and we get this kind of reconnaissance mission to go watch this intersection. So we drive the night before we get this truck. It's a white bongo truck that there's 10,000 of them, you know, this like every truck you see. And I go to the motor pool, and I've had a bad feeling. So I talked to this last girl in April. I said, I need some sort of bulletproof glass in this.
Yeah.
You know, and actually I talked to the sergeant. Sergeant's like, "Can't happen, dude. Like, we have nothing to, you know." I was like, "Come on, man. You know, you got to figure it out." So this little redneck, Lance Corporal's like, "I think I can figure it out." You know, next morning, go to the motor pool, and there's there's a Humvee glass jammed inside this little bongo truck, and it had a wooden frame around, like a wooden hinges holding it in. And I was like, thanks, bro. Gave him a hug, and Tom and I went on our way. And so we're sitting kind of hunched down, and this guy walks out about 35 yards, 40 yards ahead of us. He just stopped, turned, and just started hammering our vehicle, with an AK. And so me and Tom both laid down. I threw the car from the passenger seat. I threw the car in reverse, and he just hit the gas, and we just bounced off cars going backwards. That was our degress, and we crashed down the road and got out, and we peeled out and kind of bounded back and got into a house, and then they came and got us. And, that happened, and it was a crazy ass situation, and we didn't think much about it. Well, a few months later, we're having a change command, I remember, and they bring out this something in a sheet, poncho line over it. And I look, and it was the Humvee glass this Lance Corporal put in the thing. And so they put it up where I was sitting. There was 2 rounds, perfect right in my face. So if I wouldn't have, so this dickhead would have shot me right in the head, And I still have that sitting in my bar, in my barn, And that kind of reminds me, stop bitching about life. And it's not the funniest story, but it's a good,
Yeah, but all thanks to some shithead Lance Corporal who probably got shit on all day, and he was just like, whatever, I'll figure something out.
Right. He could have easily said, that can't happen, and just went to sleep. But, he probably spent, he probably spent a few hours putting it together, and I never got to go say thanks to the kid because I didn't really think about it. We got back, refitted, and went back out and said, yeah, let's not go in any cars anymore for a while, and, but, yeah, that was just, when I think of Tom Saunders, I think about that's one of our more PG stories that I can tell in front of the camera. Him and I did, we did well together. He was my best friend. And it's good to, he disappeared for a while, went and worked with the Army, and disappeared one day, and we just went back to work together. He's a good man. So.
Yeah, it's good, and it's good and hard to hear stories about dudes like that, because I feel like when you hear those stories, those are the dudes that, man, you wish they'd still were standing around. The good guys. Why can't that other guy who would have gone to bed too easily without doing something about that? Why can't that guy have been caught up in something?
Right.
Early?
But it's probably happened 10,000 times, and 9,999 times, nothing happens. We just got lucky that one time. We got to talk the kid into doing the right thing, and he hooked us up. And we weren't, we were guests at that base. We had no influence over his, anything that he did. So it was cool for that kid just to kind of hook us up. And he had no idea who we were or what we were doing. He was just good-hearted kid that, that took his skills and helped out. But I have very few things. I got shot. I remember the first time I got shot in my leg. I remember thinking, as a doc, you'll appreciate this. I'm thinking, oh, motherfucker, I'm cramping up, man. I got to hydrate.
Pickle juice.
Yeah, I was like, I'm cramping in the middle of a firefight. I'm like, that's a bitch move, And that's, and then it didn't hurt until someone's like, Matter, I think you're bleeding. I was like, I am bleeding, and like we were talking about before, it's not like if you made a movie about it, I'd said something cool like, oh, I don't got time to bleed, but in real life,
Jesse Ventura, that shit.
What the fuck happened? And then dragging on my leg like a little girl. But it's and then we got into a big firefight where I was kind of out. I was out and about with doing a sniping mission, and an infantry unit got hit pretty hard, and we made our way in there to just to help out on the radio and to help triage and stuff. And that unit took almost 100% casualties, and I was shot that day in my leg and in my stomach, and there was two guys left in this, and I said, hey fellas, we're not gonna fucking make it, and I went upstairs to find a shooting position, And we were in this house for hours, many hours fighting. And I went upstairs to find a shooting position, and I get punched in the side of the head by some dude that was up there waiting on us. He was up. I have no idea how he was up there. And I teach a lot of self-defense and combative fighting kind of stuff now. And I use this very specific experience because at the time I was a professional fighter, and in my head, I always kind of fantasized. I'm like, oh, I'd wreck some dude, I'd be dancing around and being sexy and moving in and out. And, but in real life, the fight was massively aggressive and barbaric and, knuckle dragging, snarling, and it was a 30-second fight. And that kind of popped me out of my little woe is me. And after I was done with that feller, I went back down and told the guys, like, hey man, let's see if we can diddy him out, And again, I was shot in my stomach and my legs, so I wasn't moving real good. So I throw this dude on my shoulder, and we just went. We had to get about a block. We got about a block down to our extract vehicle, and as we were moving, a sniper shot through him, and the bullet went through his hips, hit my shoulder, and popped through my neck and out the back of my head, and then, done me out. But him and the gentleman and myself are still living. We talk often, and so it was not a funny story like you were asking, but that's one of my more memorable stories that I use. I've taken that pretty shitty experience and developed a few good life lessons for myself, and I speak on them often, and that's given me credibility when I teach these self-defense class to police officers and stuff. And I say, hey, this is what you think you're going to look like in a fight. This is what you are going to look like in a fight. Do yourself a favor and make sure that you're low level, because that's what's going to happen is enough to kill a bad guy, and it was a shit day, but learned some stuff from it.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you took that really crappy experience and you were able to take it, flip it, and now help people benefit from that shitty experience, which is right. In turn good. So,
and it wasn't day one. That was a lot of honestly going to the VA and figuring this shit out, right. and learning. It's something as simple as learning how to sleep at night. Changed my life, but so this came with this, the way I approached that specific situation came with my healing and how I look at life now, and how I approach problems now, as opposed to several years ago when I was, I'd get pissed off and it'd be, not fun to be around, so, right. This was coming to that conclusion was kind of a journey where I'm at right now, and not that have anything figured out. I'm still a fuck up, but I'm a little more successful fuck up than I was a few years ago, so.
There's nothing wrong with that. I was telling Adam I was excited to have you on, and one of the reasons was I remember when I was like, fuck therapy, that's for bitches, like only bitches go to therapy, and I wanted to act like I was hardcore. Right. Knowing that there's guys like you out there, though, I'm like, this fucking dude has done shit I couldn't even dream of doing. But that was always a fear in my head. I was like, because if I went to therapy and then I talked to a guy like you, you're going to look at me like, look at this fucking bitch. He ain't even do anything and has to go to therapy. And it's just nice to hear someone that's gone through the shit that you've gone through, the experiences you've had to deal with, to be open enough and man enough to come out and be like, yeah, I did all that crazy shit and I can go get help. And it's beneficial, because I think a lot of guys need to hear that, because it doesn't matter if you were in the air wing, you worked in the chow hall, you shot Artie, you were a medic, or you're goddamn recon sniper. Everyone kind of has that weird, no, I'm too tough and I can't go to therapy and I can't seek that help out. And hearing somebody who's definitely experienced some very bad shit come out and be like, it helps me, is just nice to hear. So,
well, I think it's a problem for men in general, and when they make that step, like I did, I don't care, and I know no one else cares if you were a Air Force reservist or a spaceship gunner. They could care less what you did. It's that brotherhood, especially at the VA, is close enough that we all have very similar problems. Some problems come from shooting guns, some problems come from seeing shit happen, but it's, it's all generic enough that you say, okay, I can pull from this guy's problems and relate. And I understand it because it was a big problem for me. I was on, like I said, I was on the mind or I was on a team of, hey, it's good to get therapy. It's that shit's just not for me, if you need to be a pussy and get therapy, that's cool. But, you could be a knuckle dragger like me and just eat steaks and drink whiskey and, and suck it up. But that shit takes you so far. You got to look yourself in the mirror and say, all right, I'm fucked up, and I can go get the help. The help's there. All I got to do is ask for it. And then I quickly realized, my intent was I say, I want to get one profound thing per month. I want to make one breakthrough per month. What happened in real life is every week there was several times a week that something happened. And I said, holy shit, I need that, and I was also I started making progress. Just like you go to the gym, you make progress quick. You're like, oh, life's good. I'm not a fat piece of shit anymore, and, you start making this progress and I say, wow, I slept all night. I haven't had a nightmare. And then I also had a time where I told my therapist, I said, unfortunately, I haven't been tested yet. I haven't been put to a point where I have to make a decision where, what's that mental state? I'm at like a 90 and I'm getting ready to freak out. And I'm having like kind of a
almost fight or flight moment.
Yeah. I'm going through this fight or flight and I haven't been tested where I can breathe and do this, your gay breathing technique and get back down and, and say, okay, this, but the fact was I was tested as many times as I was prior to my therapy. I just knew, okay, this is a trigger that's going to make me start feeling this way. When I start feeling this way, I need to do this, and and it became automatic. And instead of me saying, okay, this is a situation where I'm freaking out and this is a process I have to go through to get back into a good mindset, I just avoided that whole freak out part altogether, and then I wasn't having panic attacks while going to sleep thinking, great, I'm going to have these fucking nightmares and I'm going to have a shit night and I'm going to have a shit day tomorrow. I'm going to be pissed, I didn't have that. So I was avoiding that. So I wasn't having them internal conversations with myself. So I was avoiding them, that fake stress that I was putting on myself, and all of a sudden I was just becoming a healthier person without even noticing it. And then I had to step back and say, holy shit, this stuff really does work. I'm a better person now because I'm not having anxiety attacks and I'm not having, and I'm sleeping now and I'm not freaking out about every stupid shit. And I'm not, and my physical pain went down because I wasn't tense all the time. And and all of that happened kind of behind the scenes. There was no I didn't go and pull some big switch and say, okay, I'm not fucking crazy anymore. So it's, and I'm very happy about that. And again, I know this isn't a VA podcast, but the VA did that for me. The VA, the very specific groups, and I don't know if I should say his name. He's a specific person at the VA, and he's just a good dude. And actually, I'm going to say his name is Doc Fisher, and the dude's he's a stud, and he understands how to talk to you, and he's not a military guy, and he's the guy's just he's a miracle worker. If you go in and ask him, he's like, hey, how's your day? And he'll talk to you like he's a good person, and fortunately there are many people like him at the VA that don't have experiences with that other people do. The VA is a good place for them, and if I don't know if you want there to be a theme or something to take from every one of your conversations, but if there is anything that, go, if you think you're fucked up, go get help, and it's embarrassing. I'm still embarrassed walking through the doors every single, building 43 at Milwaukee VA. That's the fucking kind of where the nuts go, it's a mental health place. So, I'd rather go and say, hey, my toes hurt, but that's not my fact. My fucking facts, my brains are fucked up and I need to go in there and get, and I walk out, I'm a better person. And, I'm okay with doing it. I wish I didn't have to, but I got to, you know, it's just something that I got to do right now. So
Yeah.
You're an old Ford pickup at this point, man. You got to take care of that thing.
no shit. Yeah. And I've noticed, you know, you spend a day or, you know, a week or two without revving the engine, you know, and you start saying, oh, I can see myself fucking up again, you know? So, yeah.
I like to think of it like that, as like, you know, we're just a bunch of old pickup trucks and we got to figure out how to keep ourselves running if we're going to figure it out, you know, a good preventive maintenance schedule. You know, if therapy's a part of it, you know, your brain's your most powerful thing. Keep that thing up and running.
Right. Well, you know, the more you get to know me, my brain is not very powerful, but I appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm just here to pump you up, man. I'm just here to blow air up your skirt.
Right.
I had a joke that I don't think I'll get a chance to fit back in, but I have to make it. It's like you and your buddy share a girlfriend. He's your Eskimo brother, right?
Right.
You and that buddy, you shared a bullet. What the fuck are you guys?
Right. He actually calls and talks shit because that bullet went through his hip, so I have his ass in my neck. So you know, he reminds me of that often. He's like, you don't use my ass in your neck. I'm like, yeah, I fucking do know that, you girl's ass.
Cheeked you.
And I didn't know that fucking kid till that day. You know.
Oh man.
So, yeah.
Those are those ones where you hear people like, we can laugh about it, but if some civilian was to listen to that part of it, they'd just be like, what the fuck? I was waiting for you to have the comeback, or you just be like, oh yeah, you got my ass in your neck. You'd be like, well, I wouldn't fucking have it if you could have just walked your happy ass, something like, and you know, it's all shitty situation and he had no control over it. You have no control over it, but you just got to keep digging at each other just for the fun of it, because you know, neither one of you actually means anything negative by it.
Well, there was a small time, like even in that house, I'm like, all right, man, we're gonna make a run for it. He's like, I don't think I can make it. And I was like, come on, bro. I'm like, come on, man. You know, like I don't know if I can carry your fat ass. You know, like, come on. Like, you know, like, well, all right, let's see what happens here. You know, it's like, this sucks, bro. You know, but
yeah, I love that stuff. I miss before you pick somebody up and you'd be like, seriously, you couldn't have lost a couple pounds before this? You're on full feeds right now?
Right.
Getting you ready for the county fair?
Oh, geez.
Right. I was like, hey, jettison some of that shit, man. You know, Sips would be cool with it.
Sip is not cool with it. I've definitely learned that.
I right before that, I had all my communication gear. I broke the scopes out of my sniper rifle. I had all my radios. So I threw a incendiary grenade on it. And I remember my bosses afterwards, like, bro, it would have been a lot easier if you would have died. Like, we gotta, like, how we can explain shit. I'm like, well,
oh shit.
The mountain of paperwork. I remember we were in Western Baghdad, and they had actually used a cord detonated IED, and so their timing was impeccable. And I remember you talked about the bullets in the glass in front of you in that bongo truck, but in their M1114 up armored Humvee, like they had the front windows were smushed in like a volleyball had come into the window like that, and then the thing ended up burning to the ground. And when they finally did their loss report, one of the dudes had the balls to claim his PSP, his little PlayStation thing.
Oh man.
And I'm like, dude, you're liable to get an Article 15 for that shit, man. You're not supposed to have that stuff in zone. They actually reimbursed him for it.
Oh shit.
Awesome.
Lucked out.
But that guy was our designated shooter or marksman for our platoon, and so his rifle was gone, his long gun was gone. He still had his M4, but all the ammo blowing off at the end of it. Like, we were just essentially, the only thing we didn't have in our hands was a can of beer. You're just standing back watching the truck burn to the ground, because that's all you got to wait for it to be done. I got photos of that too still.
Wish I can remember what our DM carried rifle wise. I can't remember what the hell he had.
Well, they carried for a while. They were carrying M14s, which is
M14.
Which is awesome. Yep. Then they're carrying 308 gas guns, you know, which is a AR-10 essentially. I don't even know what they shoot right now. You know, I mean, honestly, if you shoot a 77 grain 223 round, you put someone on their ass with it. You know, that's what I was shooting. You know, we had every gun you could ever want. You know, when I was shooting MX3, which is a fully suppressed 308.
You and I talked about the Remington 700, right?
Remington 700 is an M40. You know, this just your basic issued sniper rifles, basically a Remington 700 with a Schneider barrel, a McMillan stock. They're wonderful, but you don't want to be in a fucking gunfight with a bolt gun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, so it's, they're cool to take pictures with. Like first week you get there, you take your pictures and put that bitch in a box. Hope it doesn't rust. Yeah.
That's the hilarious side of it. Like look at everybody's tricked out deer rifles now because of OEF.
Right.
I got dudes that are going out there with floating barrels and all. I'm like, what are you doing? Just use your grandpa's 30-06, man.
Yeah. Right.
I got a Ruger 300 Win Mag. That's my deer rifle. I'm like,
he's a deer rifle.
Well, remember, dude, I'm from Texas where everything's usually bigger. So if you're hunting elk or something, 300 Win Mag's a normal thing. Up here, the deer are a little smaller. Okay.
Yeah, you
cut me some slack here.
You can end bloodlines with that.
I'm okay with that.
I'm one of those dudes who jumped on the 6.5 Creedmoor train, and I couldn't be more satisfied with that thing.
That's a fun round though.
So me and my I have a group of snipers. We called our little group the C7, and we developed a 6.5 Creedmoor, which we actually went into production and we sell it. It is the smoothest shooting. It's a gas gun, and that's a 1,1500 yard gun all day. And I'm very, very, very happy. I'm very proud of that gun. And we have a line. I have a line of signature series rifles that I kind of put my ideas and honestly my name behind. Everything from a 300 Blackout all the way to this 6.5 Creedmoor. But the 6.5 Creedmoor is kind of our flagship, and it's myself and actually some of the snipers are still active. So so we're talking and they're two of the active guys that are on this team of ours. They're both warrant officers, gunners. So they're weapons experts, and they're both very successful snipers in their own right. So we sat down and developed a 6.5 Creedmoor, and it basically we said, hey, this is what it needs to be, in order to be the ultimate gas gun. I don't know if we call it a sniper rifle. It's a gas gun. But it's a sub-minute gun. I couldn't be happier with this gun. It's MGS made it for us actually, and we just moved from MGS to a place called Blacked Out Arms, and they're out of Wisconsin, actually out of Eagle River, Wisconsin, and we sat down with him and we basically said, this is what we want it to look like, and we want it to perform like. So if you can't do exactly this, you need to go fuck off. And he he took every single thing we required, and he made a really, really cool gun out of it. So, if anyone's looking for a badass, super expensive 6.5 Creedmoor, that'll outshoot anybody, it's Blacked Out Arms makes it for us, and it's a beautiful gun.
Well, I think that caliber, that chamber solves the problem between Iraq and Afghanistan. I think the 5.56 or 223 in Iraq is, for most people, pretty adequate. But then you go to Afghanistan and it's, you don't have enough energy, but you also don't want to carry around a broomstick all day. And so I think they were trying to solve that problem 4 or 5 years ago, and they took a contract from somebody. But I'd be really curious to see how that one would play out with your standard line troop in a AO like Afghanistan.
I mean, if the military went to 6.5 Creedmoor, it would, I think a 308's too big and bulky, but a 6.5 Creedmoor, it's fast, it's flat. It has similar characteristics ballistically as a 223 or 5.56 round, because it's fast and flat, but you get the knockdown power, and it's so fast, what it lacks in mass, it makes up for in velocity. It will wreck your ass, it will, we shot, I have hundreds of ballistic, we've shot, hundreds of ballistic gel rounds or rounds through ballistic gel. And I was more impressed with the internal ballistics of the 6.5 than I was with just a plain hollow point 308, bolt tail 308, and then, the 6.5 kind of flies like a 7mm mag. It's got, a 270 is a flat round, real fast, a lot of velocity, as opposed to your 300 Win Mag, which these are all 30 cal rounds. Your 300 Win is basically like throwing a fucking softball through someone's chest. At like 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's why I work on my shot placement. Okay.
You know, and I started to look at some of the charts on those. I was like, I don't want to be lobbing rounds in. Like I just want to minimize my error, right? Like in the Wisconsin deer hunting community, I'm not taking anything beyond 250 odds.
No.
You know, I could take some 500-yard shots if I wanted to, but I'm probably not gonna.
Right.
And I'll just get in a little closer. Hopefully my woodsmanship will make up for that. But you know, so then what, right? Do I need to bring this thing in? And when I got into bow hunting, I started to go with fast flat arrows. I went with a lighter, a lower grain. And I was just impressed with how fast I was hitting the target. And for me with bow hunting is when the sound is that close, for me, I've got to have something flying, you know,
Right.
a third of a second means a big difference in deer hunting. So like, just trying to apply the same stuff. And it's nice to see that I made a good choice with my deer rifle, you know,
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, 6.5. My first experience, I was fortunate enough to go do that Vortex spot with them.
Right.
They took me out to Lodi, and Lodi has a 1,000+ yard range that I got to shoot on. I haven't got to shoot that far since I was still in the Marines. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, this is awesome. I get to use this dude's setup 6.5 Creedmoor. First time I got to shoot this caliber. This is awesome. I'm like, yeah, I don't expect to hit that man target over 1,000 yards away because, well, it's my first time sitting within 3 shots. I was hitting it, and the dude was just like, perfect. Yeah, this, that, and the other things. Oh, yeah, no, you got a nice prone position, feet are flat, everything's looking good. Just, yeah, it's already set up for you. Just normal breathing technique, and you'll be on target. And I was like, okay, cool. And 3 shots in, I was like, this is a crazy round because, yeah, I barely had to do anything, and I can get on target with this. This is dope.
You know, if you think you're shooting at 308 from 1,000 yards, the mass trajectory of that round is about 52 feet. You know, so if you can picture, you know, shooting over a 5-story glass building, you know, in what the wind's doing at that, you know, at 52 feet in the air, you don't know. You know, a sniper doesn't know. You know, I mean, you can guess, and you do all the math to make sure that you know what you're doing, but you know, are you doing the math at 100 yards where the bullet's still going at 2,600 feet per second? Are you doing it at 900 yards where the bullet's slowed down significantly and it's starting to yaw, so there's more surface area, you know? And with that 6.5, you don't have to think that much into it because it's going so fast. It's not going to affect as much. It's still, I mean, you still got to do the math, you know?
Right.
But because of the velocity of that round, you know, the weather and wind is going to affect that much less. It's a cool round.
You have to hold less, you know, you don't have to make any scope adjustments up to a certain
Right.
point. I think for deer hunting, for me, that's what I want is I'm not going to say, I can't sit here and start, you know, 4 clicks at a time. I can't do that. I don't have time for that shit.
Right.
No, I'm taking the ACOG way of doing it where it's set already. I know what the actual center is, and I know what the next line's going to be, and I'm just going to try and judge it in between that.
Which is good to a point until you're really throwing the round up, you know.
Yeah. Right.
Which fucked me over this season. It's a whole other conversation.
I still 0 to 100 yards. I don't 0 to 250 like a lot of guys do. We're not out west.
In Wisconsin, man, 100 yards. That's what you want to know you're accurate right there, you know. And with a 30 cal type round, that you know, at 100 yards, you know, it was at 36 yards, it equals 300, or you know, but 100 yards is perfect.
So how do you know, now we're starting to hear some of this, I think some of your current work knowledge coming out, like, you know, the story kind of left off in North Carolina, you know, you come up to Wisconsin, you start doing things like, what's that whole transition like?
So, so I was, because I was injured, I was hanging out at the schoolhouse and at the sniper school. And, they were doing a lot the last 2 weeks of some of these more advanced sniper schools. They would bring foreign militaries and a lot of police guys in, and to show them how we operate and kind of get the verbiage down and say, hey, this is what the, you know, what's expected of a military sniper. So bring that back to your police departments and say, hey, this, you know, like a lot of police departments have I hunt, so I'm their sniper, you know. And the Obama administration, they cut all that funding out. And so these police departments and these foreign militaries were calling the schoolhouse saying, hey, when can we send our guys down? And they're saying, we don't have this. We don't provide that anymore. But a friend of mine that was there says, if you contact John Matter, he might be able to come down and teach you. He just got out. He's retired now. So I'm working at a composite engineering place, and we're doing two things. We are taking drones apart, making them lighter, and we are making wind turbines for military applications for the Oshkosh defense. And basically what they would do is these wind turbines would pop up on the back of a man truck, and they would be able to generate enough energy to run a field hospital. And I was stoked on this mission. I was stoked on this company. Very nice people. And but again, I was putting a tie on every day, thinking, "Who the fuck am I?" I'm trying to use big syllable words. I just sound like a goddamn idiot, And I was trying to fake the funk, And I started getting emails from random police departments saying, "Hey, we're giving your name, and so one day I just responded and said, "Oh yeah, I could do that for you," So I kind of started a company that I didn't have, and I started going out and just kind of, teaching these sniping classes to police departments, and I met Bob Chapman and Pat Johnson, who are my current partners. Bob Chapman's he's a military guy, but he has a police background, and Pat Johnson, he owned a media company, and we were hiring him to do all our media for all these shoots and stuff, and it just happened. First, he's a great human. Second, he knows more about guns than I've ever known. He's forgot more about guns. He's one of those. Like, I like guns, but they're a fucking tool. He likes guns because he's weird. So, and we all get along. It was a perfect dynamic, and we started a company called Applied Tactical Training Academy, where we went and trained these police departments and stuff, and foreign militaries, and we found a need in the private sector for corporations doing corporate security, doing a lot of third-party walkouts, doing basically walking through and saying, hey, if there was going to be an active shooter, this is how it would look. This is what we can do to defend against it, to mentally defend against it, to physically to put defenses up against this. And we've switched kind of our mission more toward that corporate security, because we think there's a bigger need for it. Unfortunately, right now it's a big need for it. Right. And so we run all that corporate security out of a company called Blue Water Security Solutions. So if anyone's listening, if they're in corporate, corporate security thing, we can set up. We go from it's turnkey. We teach them how to call the police and how to evacuate properly and what to look for, and we set up team leaders, and we set up. We work with different units or different organizations inside the corporation, saying, okay, you are the leaders of this extract. If on the west side you guys get attacked, this is where we're going. And we sometimes work for a week. Sometimes we walk through and give them a 24-hour kind of assessment, saying, okay, this is where your soft spots are. And we like doing it. Bob's very good at it. I enjoy doing it. We have the technology. Pat brings all the cameras and stuff in, so we give a good full kind of report back to them. And we still do the tactical training because I enjoy it. We actually teach. We help develop the Girl Scouts self-defense and situation awareness program. So we work with the Girl Scouts. With this COVID less now, but at one point we were doing 3-4 classes a month with the Girl Scouts, and that was my favorite thing to do. And and I do as much self-defense stuff as I can, because I think there's a need for it. Especially with college age girls. Their ability to avoid situations, I think, is important. So
there's a lot of creeps out there.
There's a lot of creeps out there, and I think it's as simple as is presenting yourself as a hard target. We talk about that more than actually your ability to fight, because facts are, if I want someone's wallet, I'm gonna fucking take it. There's not much they're gonna do to stop me, other than put me in a situation where I don't feel comfortable taking from them. So we work on that more than anything. And then we actually we started a nonprofit 501c3 just about a year ago, called the First Responder Survivors Fund, where we give money to the surviving family members of a first responder that died in the line of duty, within 24 hours, just for logistical reasons. We being in the military, we understand that, you gotta, if Billy dies, you gotta fly in Aunt Karen from Tennessee, and when you got to feed everybody and stuff, and that adds up, and insurance will take care of that. So that's our small way of saying, that's how we can kind of help financially. And actually, that's how we got involved with Sierra Delta. Is we had a big golf tournament, and we raised a good amount of money for our organization. And next year, we're going to actually give that golf tournament to Sierra Delta. We're going to run it, and Sierra Delta is going to run it with us. And I think what BJ is doing, is basically, I was saying, like, hey, you need to be able to present yourself as a military guy in the civilian world. I think BJ does a better job than anyone I've ever met at preparing people to become a successful civilian. And I want to be involved with that kid in any way. And I'm on the phone with him at least once a week, asking him, hey, what are you doing with this and this and this? And we're going to actually start working together more often now. But that's how we're going to support Sierra Delta is we're going to help them run that golf tournament now, or they're going to help us run it, whatever. And that money's going to go toward a military veteran that is a police officer that unfortunately, if something happens, so that's our way to kind of marry our two. Like I said, I'm just trying to be involved with BJ because he's such a good, BJ. I don't know if you know Mick Gilster over there, and they got so many good people over there that are good military guys that truly care about military people, and I love those guys. And I actually have a service a dog through them, not a service dog. It's a life buddy dog that they call. He's just a cool ass dog that doesn't chew shit because he's trained well. So he's I think BJ he's the most important veteran in the Midwest, and I would say bigger, but I don't know enough organizations on the East Coast or West Coast, but as far as being influential and as far as getting stuff done for veterans, I don't think there's many people that's more important than BJ Gannon. So he's a good man, very good man.
Yeah, we had the pleasure of having him on the last episode, which he obviously speaks highly of you as well. So I think that led to that. And you guys are killing me though, because you guys you talk about needing to get good sleep. You guys have cost me hours on YouTube watching shit that you guys are doing. Like I try to intentionally come in a little blind on some of these episodes so that I don't hog the whole conversation, just talking about how cool you are. But there's some rabbit holes I get stuck down, and I'm just like, all of a sudden I bring him on, and like right before I was like, dude, you're on Letterman? He's like, and Leno or and Fallon or something. I was like, what?
And we're giving away a Jeep this weekend. And we're doing
right.
What?
So, George Bush drew his portrait.
Yeah.
George Bush painted me
twice, I think, actually.
Right. He's cool as shit, man.
I don't think I said it on the podcast, but when I met him, I was just like, yeah, did you tell him, paint me like one of them French girls?
Yeah. He'd probably get a laugh out of it.
Right?
I'm not gonna lie, he's a little bit better looking in his portrait than his real life. I think. They fudged it a little bit.
President had to take some liberties here and there.
Right.
That's why I love the Instagram filter. It's
right.
Different ball game.
Wow,
no, so BJ's doing cool stuff. You've been able to pivot and do some nonprofit work. The thing I like about what you're doing with that first responder fund, I apologize for, I'm going to have you say it again so we can get it right. But, like the FBI and a lot of local agencies have victim advocates, and they do have money set aside for some of that stuff. But I think what veterans tend to get frustrated about, we'll take a pause till John can get back on. We'll have to edit it back. Oh, so John is still with us. So one of the things about those pools of money that I've learned and can frustrate veterans is how slow the process is when you have to involve the government and whatever fair. Sometimes I want government to intentionally move slow. And so, but this is not one of those times. And being able to action onto something really quickly, like you said, that first 24 hours and put some cash in people's pockets and get them coping with what they just had to happen. To me, that's awesome. That's how Team Rubicon started. Like, I don't know if you'd serve with Jake Wood. He was a sniper guy. He might have come through your schoolhouse at some point. But he was a Marine vet, sniper, he played football at Wisconsin. And so, then he gets out, he can't figure out what to do. He goes to Haiti and bam, all of a sudden now Team Rubicon is one of the biggest disaster response organizations in the US, if not the world. And it's all because he got a little annoyed that everybody else is moving too slow. And when I think veterans, that's where the impatience can be beneficial, is that sure, we can sit and we can wait, but at the same time, we can get really frustrated when we see things move too slowly. And that's caused people to have to create things that didn't exist before. And so, when I hear you share about that, I haven't heard of anything else that can move as quickly as I think what you're able to move. And, I hope you guys continue to kind of pile up the cash to support people.
Yep.
And we're doing good. And again, that's the First Responder Survivors Fund. And we do as much as we can for we don't care if you're a EMT, firefighter, police. We understand the importance of someone just showing up, giving you a hug, saying, "Hey, man, this isn't much, but this $5,000 might get your someone flown in, or at least we cater your next lunch when there's 50 people boarding at your house. You don't need to be flipping burgers and making ham sandwiches for people during this time. And it's little, but I think it's needed. And without getting into politics, I'm a capitalist, man. I'm trying to keep the government out of shit, and you find a need for something, you go get it done, and that's something I'm proud of, and it's something that all three of us, all three of the guys that Pat and Bob that own the Blue Water with me, that we're very passionate about, and luckily BJ seeing our passion, and he said, "Hey, man, let's see if we can work together on that." So, and again, that's why BJ is so impressive. He sees cool shit, and then he finds a good way to incorporate himself and incorporate other impressive people into these ideas, and it becomes kind of like your motorcycle group. It just becomes a bunch of like-minded people just doing cool shit together. So.
And it goes beyond everybody out there trying to be. I mean, you've got a team doing it, but like, how much more is it lifted when you continue to start to build, bring in some of these highly defined specialists? You look at top tier military folks, they're all defined by these heavily specialized, individuals. And when they come together, that's where the strength is when this particular puzzle is assembled. And
right.
For you guys to be able to reach out and kind of organize and do something like that, it's the rising tide that's going to lift all the boats.
What is, and that's another military thing. If you can sit back and say, this is my sphere of influence, this is who I have, I always say, like, jokingly, by the time you're 40, you should have a guy for that. Like, if your tires are fucked up, you should know, hey, I have a guy for that. Or if your doorbell doesn't work, I got a guy for that. If your toilet's clogged, so in the military, you should have a guy for, this tragedy. You should have a guy for, hey, this is Team Rubicon. This is how I know these guys, or, hey, this is the Fire Die podcast. This is what they've done for this person. I'm going to give you his email, and I guarantee he can put you in front of the right person, and I hope that I'm that person for somebody. I hope that if someone said, hey, I just don't know how to write a resume. Oh, I got a guy for that. His name is John Matter. Give him an email, or, hey, or I'm having trouble. I think I need a service dog. I don't really know. Well, I got a guy for that. It's BJ, or Mick Gillison, or the guy right in your area, Tim Lesage, is a massively impressive person that does cool shit for a lot of people. He's a Marine sniper himself, so, the military sphere of influence is it has the ability to be more impressive than most people's sphere of influence, as long as you know how to use it, especially when, I'm 40 now. My friends are becoming sergeant majors and colonels and people that can make a phone call and get shit done. And it's if you know how to utilize that, you can become a very helpful person.
You can acknowledge how that can create efficiencies, and nobody in the civilian world is going to lay out that type of framework, right? The military is unique, that it's got something pretty special created there. Is like, like you say, through hard work and through communication and doing all these different things, putting yourself in different rooms and talking to people and remembering them. That's how you get the dishwasher replaced at half cost, like
right.
Those little things do add up.
Yep, absolutely.
Man, that's cool stuff. That's a hell of a story, John. I mean, I think we even glossed over a lot of the military stuff, but just hearing about, where you came from, why you did what you did, how far you've come, and really what you've done with it, what you've been able to, and I'm sure we're just at the tip of the iceberg, just, the force multipliers that exist, just some of the opportunities you've had, and now giving back and creating that fund. And I don't know, man, I'm just happy to get to know you.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, I've been fortunate, and, fortunate enough to get to talk to folks like you, and just to shoot the shit with good, like-minded people. That makes my heart feel good, and I appreciate you guys. I really do, and if I can ever do anything for you, please, I'll be down there, anything you need. And and you guys do great things, and and you help military people, which is all I really care about, you know.
Oh yeah.
What I need is a guy who can help me with my Call of Duty game, man. I tell you what, like I'll go in there with my usual tactics and I just still get lit up, man. Can't take it. Dudes are 360 no scoping me off the top of a building.
Bro, the last video game I played was Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and I suck. I get fucked up by Bone Bull still. I still haven't passed him, so I suck at video games, and it drives me. I have two brothers, one brother a year younger than me, and we play like Contra was the first game that you could like kill your partner. I beat his ass. Like me and him still have like a kind of like a hesitant relationship because he remembers when we were 10 years old, we beat him up from Contra. I'm like, you fucking killed me, dude. You know, so I can't play video games. I'm not mature enough to play video games right now. So
I say that, and he's going to have the same movie effect like we were talking about earlier. He's going to try to play Call of Duty and be like, this is fucking stupid. I would never jump off this 5-story building to shoot this guy.
Right.
What weapon system did they give me? Why the fuck would I carry that in this environment? That's stupid.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh, I just got an RPG apparently. That's cool.
Actually, I had a guy approach me about 2 or 3 years ago, and he wanted me to recreate games in you know, like in the game, you know, this guy moves this far at this pace with this many weapons, and he wanted me to try to do all this stuff to show like how either consistent or inconsistent a game is, you know. And I kind of got interested, and we went back and forth for a while, and he had all these people that were going to fund this, and it kind of fell apart. But I thought that would have been kind of cool, you know, like you know, just get out. He wanted me to go out in the woods and just, you know, move 3 clicks and take a shot and you know, fight this guy and blow this car up. I'm like, fuck yeah, bro. Blow everything up,
like,
bro.
yeah. Well, you're paying for this, right? You said, okay, right. Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'm there.
And that's what I think. He realized how expensive it was going to be. He's like, nah, it's not going to be a thing anymore.
That combined with the virtual reality experience, like John comes in from traveling and stuff like that, and he sees one of his kids with the thing over his eyes, low crawling on the floor with the broomstick, and it's like, no, Dad, you'd be happy. I'm gonna move 100 meters today.
Right.
Oh man, the world is weird. I always like to bring up Call of Duty because like I don't play it that often, but then comes like March, all my hunting season's done. Turkey hasn't quite picked up yet, and I'm dying. It's too cold outside still. And so I'm like, all right, we'll fire up the old machine and see what happens. And then I get waxed by a bunch of 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
John and I were talking about it. I was like, yeah, I still got a PlayStation 3. And now the PlayStation 5's coming out. Like I feel like I could do well if I bought it, but I'm like, I'm so far behind at this point that like, everyone knows all the tricks, tips, everything. I just get fucking waxed every time I logged in. I'm more of like, if I'm ever going to play, I just want a single player campaign mode. I can just do my own thing, like watching a movie. Like, I don't need to watch a movie with somebody that I don't fucking know over the internet. Like, nope, I'll just watch the movie. I'll enjoy it myself. This is what I'm doing. And I don't want to fucking talk to nobody else. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now.
Right.
My whole life is to try to figure out how to fight the progression of becoming Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino or whatever. We sit on his porch. It's like, I'm trying not to become that guy.
Right.
It's like, I've got to subject myself to get my ass whooped by a 13-year-old across the internet every now and then.
That says the most horrible shit you've ever heard. It's like, yeah, I literally sat through war and heard some shit said, and this 12-year-old is telling me way worse shit than I've ever heard before.
This kid broke me today. Yeah, he got to me. So
I'm telling you, they got the psyops down.
Crazy.
Well, shoot, let's, John, real quick, just list off what you're doing and how folks can find out more about it. You've got the First Responder Fund, you've got Blue Water, you've got ATTA. I don't know if that's still existing, but like, how do people get more interested in what you've got going on?
So we still we still operate Applied Tactical Training Academy. You can find us at atta-usa.com. We have Blue Water Security, which is bwss-usa.com. And you can always find, and then we have links to the First Responder Survivors Fund through that. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and then we have the websites. Please reach out if we can do anything for you, and we also do a lot of speed engagements. I talk on my military experiences. I talk on how I use the military operations orders to kind of kind of, dictate how I become successful in my life. And it's kind of jarheadish and belt fed, but it's what I found that works for me. And so I speak often on that. It's leadership training. It's not kind of motivational speaking, but it's, I hope people get excited, when I do these speeches. Other than that, man, that's it. So BWSS, Blue Water Security Solutions, and what you call the First Responder Survivors Fund.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Adam can find the links too. We can put them in the description when it gets posted.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah, for sure. We're all about, lifting the community up. And so, thank you again, John. I really appreciate you giving us your time today. I know that time is valuable for you, and that I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I hope that you continue to inspire, and it's nice to be connected, and keep kicking ass, man.
Very much appreciated. Like I said, I meant that. If you need something, you let me know, and I consider you guys friends. So looking forward to seeing you guys in person and talking to you soon.
Oh yeah, and I will get those pictures. I sent them in that email. I don't know why it's not opening up for you, but I'll resend those ones I got of you and Zool.
I'm gonna say that's 95% my fault, because I don't really, and you even sent me like how to break down in like a dummy, like you like screenshot and everything, and I still screwed it up. So I'm gonna blame you for now because it makes me feel better, but I'm sure
that's all right. I tried to do it Barney style for you.
I did, and I still failed. So,
well,
gentlemen, thank you so much.
You're still in the fight. You're just in a different fight now, and it's fun to see the way that you've decided to, to use your violence of action in a unique way.
I appreciate that, and I agree. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, fight or die, man.
All right, man. Thank you, guys.